Hey, what is up everyone, and welcome back to another video. In today's video we will be doing a little MERN application build. We will be using MongoDB, Express, React and Node for this entire stack application. We will be building this little e-commerce site, so basically all functionality that this e-commerce will have. It should have the ability to load the items from a database. You can see it's loading. And then we are able to view the individual items. We can view the exact amount of stock this item has. We can add the item to the cart. It takes us to the cart. We can see the cart nicely here. The cart updates here and over there. We can change this to 7 and everything else will update accordingly. We can add more items like this. Let's add a few. Just like that. We have a few items in our cart, and the nice thing about this application, I've got a few requests on having me do a video that's able to do this, and here we can refresh and then the cart stays in local storage, so this is persisted into your browser's local storage. So if I were to copy this, open a new tab and close and re-enter, I can see I still have my items in my cart. I'm able to delete, so if I refresh, there's no items in the cart left. I can go back. We can view individual application. And then I did a few nice things. This is a from scratch build, so everything is built from the ground up. I won't be using any CSS framework whatsoever. So I made this application fully responsive. So we can check it out like this. We even have this nice side draw menu that we create, which is also really nice. A lot of neat things in this application. So this is the mobile view of the products page, the mobile view of the individual page, and if we go to the stock page, this is how it looks in mobile view. So I really hope you find this video interesting, and if you enjoy, please remember to like and subscribe, and let's start with the build. Okay, so I'm gonna go through this project really at some pace, so if it's too fast for you, you can slow down the video or pause and continue as I go. So first things I'm going to do, I've navigated into the folder I just created. I just called it MERN Shopping Cart YouTube Build, and in here I opened Visual Studio Code. So basically what I'm going to do, I'm just going to build out the folder structure for this video. So I'm going to start off here by just running npm init. So I'm going to say npm init, and I'm going to say -y, so I don't have to fill in any of those things. Let's quickly just adjust this. I'm going to make this, instead of index.js, I'm going to make this server.js, just like that. Quickly save, go back to our terminal. And here I'm going to install some of the dependencies we're going to be needing for our backend. But before I do that, let's create our backend folder and our frontend folder. So I'm going to say make dir frontend, and then space, and then backend, and it will create the front end and backend folders in our directory. So now I can go and install a few dependencies for our backend. So in our root directory, so it would be this directory, not inside of any of these folders, I'm going to run npm I, and I'm going to be installing Express, Mongoose, and .env, so we can save our MongoDB URI, and we can run this. Great. So now that that is done, I'm gonna install two dev dependencies. The first one is concurrently. So what concurrently does, this allows us to run a script that runs our backend and our front end at the same time, so we don't need two separate terminals to keep on running them. We just run one command and it will start up both of them. So we're going to say npm I --save -dev, and here we're going to say nodemon and concurrently, just like that. We can run this, and then we're going to quickly set up our scripts. So actually, before I'm going to set up the scripts, I'm just going to go into my backend folder and set up the server.js, so we can see them running. And then I can actually go into the front end. So let's cd into the front end for now. So in the front end, we can say learn YouTube build front end. And in here, I want to run npx create React app. So we can say npx create dash React dash app, and then just a dot because we want it in that folder. While that is busy, that's going to take a while. So we can go into our backend manually like this and just create a server.js. Oh, did not create a file. We can say server.js. So this would be the entrance to our project. So this is what we added here under main. So we can close this. And in here we can start building our basic Express server. We can say const express equals require express. Then we're going to initiate the express function in an app variable. App equals express. And then we can do app.listen. We want to listen on some port variable that we'll get from our environment variables. And then once we connect it to that port, we want to console.log with backticks. We can say server running on port, and then we can insert a variable port. So let's create that variable port. So we can say const port is equal to the process.env.port. And if this does not exist, we can just say or. So the or statement takes any statement that is true. So we can add here 5000. Okay, so with that done, we have a basic Express server. But before we run this, I just want to, in our root directory, so not in the backend or front end, I want to create two files. The first one is the .env, and the second one is the .git ignore. Just like that. Okay, and this is not done yet, I believe. Yeah, still busy. So in the .env, we can add our port variable. We can say port is equal to, let's just keep it at 5000, but you can change this anytime to whatever you'd like. It should not be 3000 because our front end will be running on 3000. Okay, so we're going to have a Mongo URI as well, but we don't have that yet, so we can leave that. We can close this up, and the .gitignore we'll do in just a second. I just want to bring in the .env in our server so we have access to this process.env. So right at the top we can say require, and this package to install called .env, and then on this package we can run the .config function. Config. So now we should have access to this. So we can actually open Visual Studio Terminal right here, and we can run the following commands just to see if the server comes up. So we can say node backend/server.js. Okay, so we have an error here. Let's check it out. .env config. I kept spelling that incorrectly, so I'm just going to save this again. Going to clear and run that, and we can see server running on port 5000. Okay, great stuff. So we can close this up. The React should be done by now. Okay, so this is done. So what I want to do is I want to remove the Git repository in the front end. So React when we run npm create React app, it makes a Git repository for the folder structure automatically. I want to remove that because I want the Git repository inside of my my root directory. So I'm going to go to this git ignore file. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to select all. I'm going to copy it like that. Then I'm going to paste it inside of our git ignore in our root directory. So right over here. And then the one thing I'm going to do is instead of this node modules having the slash over there, I'm going to remove that. And then I'm going to copy this down again and put a slash at the end, just like that. So now if we save this, it should block out both of them, but the root directory does not have a Git repository. So first thing I want to do is inside of the front end still, I want to run this command, rm-rf, and then the .git extension. So now if I were to run ls a, we can see the Git is not here anymore, Git repository. So I'm going to clear this up. Now I can actually remove this git ignore inside of our front end. We can delete this because we won't be needing that. And inside of our root directory now, I want to create a Git repository. So I can cd out of the front end. So now I'm inside of my root directory, and here I can say git init, just like that. And now we can see both of these npm modules should be grayed out. So this is awesome. We want to add .env in our git ignore as well. So down here we can just say .env. Oh, sorry. Okay, so all of the important things are grayed out right now, and our project folder structure is set up. So let's quickly do the scripts. So in our root directory, in the package.json, we want to add a few scripts. The first script is going to be the start. So we always do this for the start script when you deploy to something like Heroku or any other server, cloud host server place. So in here we want to say node, and we want to go to the back end and run the server.js file. So the next script we want to add is to run only the server. So we can say server, but we want to run the server using nodemon. So we can say nodemon, and then we go into the backend /server.js. The next script we want to have is to solely run the client. And you'll see why we do these scripts like this, because we're going to pass them to concurrently, and concurrently will run both of them at the same time for us. So in here we can run the following. We can say npm start, because if you start a React app, you remember in the package.json we have this start script over here. We can run npm start. But first, it should navigate into the front end folder. So we can say -- prefix, and then we can say front end. So this should navigate into the front end folder and start our React application. The next one we want to add is the concurrently, we can say run dev. So we're going to run the script in our root directory called run dev, and this should run both our front end and our back end at the same time. Okay, and here I want to run the following script. So this script is going to use concurrently. So we can say concurrently, just like that. And in here, make sure you type this correctly. We have backspace, and then we escape it with a string or with a quotation mark, and then we run npm run server. So it would go to this script and run this script. And then we escape it with a backtick again with another quotation mark. Then we have a backtick again, and in here with a quotation mark we run npm run client. And then we can end this off with a backtick and a quotation mark, just like this. So just quickly copy this and make sure you have this format correct in this way. So basically what concurrently would do, it would go to this run server, it will run the server, and then we would go to the run client and run the client. Okay, so with this done we can save, and now everything should be fine. So I'm going to test this out by going to my command line, and in the root directory I'm going to run npm run dev, and let's see if this works. Okay, so here it's starting up, we can see it run our server with nodemon, and here it opens up our React app on localhost 3000. So we should see the React loading page over here. Okay, great. So we have our folder structure up and running. So let's get started by creating our backend. I want to add things to our backend build, and then we can go to the front end. So let's do that next. Okay, so I'm going to close all of this up. I'm going to go back to my terminal. I'm going to stop this server from running. And in here, I'm going to start building out my folder structure for my backend. I just like adding my folder structure because this just makes it neater so I know where I'm working. So I'm going to cd into backend. And in here, I'm going to create a few folders. So I'm going to say make directory. And I'm going to make a config folder where I save my database instructions and setup. Then I'm going to have a controller folder. This is where all my route controllers will go. Then I'm going to have a data folder. Then I'm going to have a models folder and a routes folder. That should be all of them. Okay, so inside of my, let's start with connecting our database. So inside of my config, I'm going to create another subfolder and I'm going to call this db.js. And in here, we're going to be using Mongoose. So I'm going to say const mongoose equals require mongoose in this fashion. Then I want to create the setup for this. So I want to get Mongoose to connect to our database. So the first thing we're going to need is that Mongo URI in our process.env. So over here, we're going to need this. We'll set up the database in just a second. So here I'm going to say require, and from the .env, we're going to say config, make sure I do that correctly. And then we're going to make a function here. We're going to say const connect db, and this is going to be an asynchronous function because we're going to be working with our database. We're connecting to our database, and in here we add a try catch. In the try part, we're going to say await mongoose.connect, and this connect takes in that Mongo URI, so we can say process.env.mongo underscore URI. So exactly what we have in here. Okay, and then this takes in another object with a few settings. We're gonna pass in here new URL parser, and we set this equal to true. The next one is use unified topology, and set this to true as well. Once this is complete, we want to just console.log, and here we want to say MongoDB connection success. Okay, and if there is an error, we want to console.error, and here we want to say MongoDB connection and set this equals to fail. And then we just want to exit our server with exit code of 1. So once this is done, we just need to export this function. So you can say module.export is equal to the connect db and save. So now we're just going to need access to our Mongo URI, but first let's bring this script into our server. So down here we can import the connect db script, and we can import this from /config/db, and then we can just below that we can run this db function. So now if I were to go into my terminal, okay, this will not work, so let's first go to MongoDB Atlas and set up our cluster. Okay, so here I'm on the MongoDB Atlas page, and you can just try free and then create an account, or if you already have an account you can just sign in. So I'm just gonna go sign in. Okay, so in here I've created a project called Merge Shopping Cart Redux tutorial, whatever you'd like, and then in this project I'm going to be building a cluster. So here I can say build cluster. I'm going to take the free tier, and this I'm just going to leave exactly like it is. I'm actually going to choose Frankfurt over here because that's closest to me. Actually Ireland eWest is closer. So let's add a cluster name. I'm just going to call this mini mern tut, and then create. And while this is setting up, we're going to need a few things for this cluster. We're going to need to add database access and network access. So under database access, we can create a user. I already have a user, but I'm just going to delete this. And I'm going to add a new database user. And right here, I'm going to say, I'm just going to call it, user, and then -123. And then as the password, I'm just going to say user -123 in the exact same way. So it would probably be better if this goes to production, which this application hopefully won't, but it would probably be better when this goes to production that you make this password more secure. So I'm going to say add this user. So we have this user, and then under network access, once again, I already have something here. We can add, you should see this, we can add IP address, and then we're just going to say allow access from anywhere and confirm. Okay, so once all of that is done, we're now just waiting for our cluster to create. So once this is done, I will get back to you. Okay, so the database setup is done. We can see this little green light, which means it's active. And now all we want to do is go to the connect tab over here, and we want to say connect your application. So here you can choose your node version. I'm using a later version than this, so I can just copy this string over here. This is the Mongo URI. So in our code, we can now go to the process.env and paste in this string. But first, we need to change this part where it says password to the password we created. So I created the password the same as our name. So this is the same. And then here the DB name we want to give. So the DB name is going to be, let's say, shop or whatever you'd like. I'm just going to call it shop. And if I save this, and now I would to run my server, let's try this out again. I can say node backend/server.js. We should hopefully see the MongoDB Connect success as well. So the server is running and MongoDB Connect success. So this is great. The next thing I want to do is build out our model. So in the models folder, I'm going to close all of this up. I'm going to close this up. Instead of the models folder, I'm going to create one new file called product.js. And here we're basically just going to tell Mongoose how our product will look like. So first off, we'll once again import Mongoose equals require Mongoose. And then we can start building our schema. So we can say const product schema is equal to Mongoose. We can actually say new mongoose.schema, just like that. And then we can pass it an object, and in here we define. So we're going to have a name field. This name field is going to be of type string, and it's going to be required. So we can set required equals to true. Then we're going to have a description field, and this is going to be of type string as well and required as well. So required. Then we'll have a price field, and this price field will be of type number and required as well. And then we're going to have a count in stock field. So this should be of this individual item. We can say type of number and also required. So this is where we'll pull out how many of this item is in stock. And then the last thing, we're just going to have an image URL, and this is going to be of type string, and then required, set this equal to true as well. So this is how our product will look. We'll have a name, description, price, count in stock, and image URL. Now we have to create the model, so we can say const product is equal to mongoose.model, and in here we pass it some string. We just say product, and MongoDB will change the collection name to products. So then we can pass the product schema. So you can say product schema, and then just export this product model. So you can say module.exports equals to product. Okay, so with this done, we are done with creating our model. And now I want to quickly create a script that will import data into our database. So inside of this data folder, I'm just going to copy and paste something. I'm going to say products.js. And in here, you can go either copy this visually here. It's a bit long though, so I would suggest going into the Git repository that's linked down below. And here I just added a few products. So a PlayStation with a name, image URL, description, price. And then I have an iPhone with these. You can get all of these images and descriptions from the Git repository under the data folder in the backend. Then you just copy this file. So we're going to use this to import our data into the database. So I'm just going to save this and then close this up. And inside of the root directory for the backend, so inside of the backend folder, I want to create a Cedar script.js. And in here, I'm going to be using our model we just created and the .env because we're going to need to connect to our database. So first, let's add our require of the .env and .config. And then I'm going to import those products. So we just added there, products data is equal to require. And then inside of the data folder, the products file. Then we need to import our connectdb. So we can say connectdb is equal to require inside of the configs folder, config the db. And the next thing is we're going to need the product model we just created. So we can say require inside of the models folder, we can get the product file. Now we first off want to run the connectdb function, so to connect to our MongoDB instance. And then we want this import data function. So you can name this whatever you'd like. But basically what this is going to do, and this is going to be an asynchronous function because we're working with the database. And what this is going to do is it's going to delete everything that's in our database and then insert the items. So we're first going to have a try catch, and in the try area we're going to say await product.delete many. So if you've seen my MongoDB crash course, you'll know these things. So we'll delete many over here, delete all of the products that's in the database currently. And then we want to await product.insert many. So now we want to insert everything that's in our products data. So we can just pass that variable directly into this function. And once that is complete, we can now say console.log, so we can just see the output. And here it's going to tell us data import success. And then once the success is done, we just want to process.exit. So this is just a script to import. It's not supposed to run the whole time, so you can say process.exit if I can just type that correctly. Okay, and then if something were to fail, we want to console.error, and here we want to say error with data import, and then we want to exit with process.exit with a status code of 1. So we can save this. This is the function that should import our data. And this file, when this file cedar script.js is called, we want to run this import data function immediately. So we can just run it down at the bottom. So we can save this. And inside of our package.json, I want to create a script that we can just run to import this data. So down here, I'm going to add import, or actually let's say data, and then that character, I don't know what that's called in English, double pinned in my language. So we can add that over there. I think it's colon, I'm not sure, I'm probably wrong. And then here we can navigate by saying node, and then we want to run the backend / cedar script.js. So it's going to navigate into our backend folder and then run this cedar script.js file. So if you were to save this now and go to our terminal and run in our root directory npm run data : import double point or whatever, and it should connect to our DB. So we should see MongoDB connection and then data import success. So now if we want to clear that and go to our MongoDB Atlas instance, in here we can view the collections and we should see our products data. So here we can see the products data is the list of products we added. So this is a quick way to get things into your MongoDB database. Okay, so now that we have this in our database, we can close this tab and we will be working with the routes to fetch data and fetch individual products. So we can close all of this up, we can close the seeder. The next thing we want to do is in our server.js, just below the app declaration, we can say app.use, and here we want to use express.json. So we're going to be needing JSON data from and to our React client. So once this is done, we can create our routes. So the first route we're going to have is app.use, and this should go to /products. And we're going to create the route for that in just a second. So I'm going to import it up here, const products product routes, and this is equal to require, and we haven't created this yet, but we'll do it now. Routes, and inside of routes we'll have a product routes.js. We don't have to say .js. Okay, and then we can just pass this routes down here. So now any request going to HTTP localhost 5000/products, we can actually say API because it's the API. So API/products will have access to these routes. So let's save that. This should not work, so we can go into the routes, and here we can create that product routes.js file. And in here we're going to do the following things. We're going to once again import express, but we're going to use the router this time. So we can say express, and here we can say const router is equal to this express router, and then run that as a function. So now we can say router.get, and the /route, we just want to get all of our products. So we can actually give this a nice description. We can say description and set this equal to get all products from DB, and then here we can say the route. So this should be a get to API/products, and we don't have to set this, but I usually do. So you can say access, and access will be public. Okay, so in here we're gonna have our route that says request response, and we don't have to add the next here, but we'll be doing this part actually inside of our controller. So I'm just going to copy this again and paste it down here, and this get should be to some/id. So we can say get a product by ID from the DB. So we can say product slash I think it's colon double point, I think colon. Leave down in the comments below what this is called. I think it's colon. I'm not really sure. I'm probably wrong. And then let's go into the. Okay, we first have to export the router. So you can say module.exports is equal to that router. So now we have access here to these routes. Okay, so let's create the controller for the product. So this is actually really simple. We don't have much to do. So we have product controllers.js, and in here is where we do all the fetching. So firstly we're going to need our model, so we can say product is equal to require, and then we can navigate to the models, not the routes, the models / and then the product. And here we're going to need the const get all products and set this equal to a function. This function is going to be asynchronous again, and this function will have access to the request and the response. So in here we're going to have a try catch, and then we're going to say const products is equal to await. Then we use the model to get our data from the database, and here we can say just find and then pass in empty curly braces. Once that is done, we can respond with JSON and then just pass those products down. So our front end will make a request to this endpoint and then we'll receive all of the products. If there is an error, we can just say console.log or console.error, and here we can pass the error. Else we want to res.status with a 500 and say JSON, and then in here we want to pass a message field that says server error, just like that. We can actually now copy this exact same function and paste it down below here, and this would say get product by ID, just like that. And instead of fetching all of the products, we'll get an individual product and we'll say product await find by ID, and we'll pass in here the request params because it will be inside of the params, and then ID, because if you remember, if we go back to the route, we had products and then this ID. This is the inside of the param, so we're going to fetch whatever is over there, and then we return that individual product, just like that. And if there's an error, we have the exact same thing. Now we need to export these controllers, so we can say module.exports and set this equal to a document, and here we can say get all products and get product by ID. So now we can import these routes inside of our, import these controllers inside of our routes. So here I'm just gonna say const, and it's going to be named import, so we have to import it by name. And here we can say require inside of our controllers, we want the product controller, and in here we would like the get all products and the get product by ID. And instead of passing these routes down here, we're going to be passing these controllers. So get all products should go to the first route, and then the get product by ID should go to the second route. So if we save this, our routes should be done. Let me just double check this. Yes, it looks like our routes are done, and this is basically our entire backend done. So yes, we have our entire backend. Let's just go to the server and then make sure I have everything running correctly over here. Express. Let's just run this and make sure. So we can say node backend/server.js running, and then it should connect. Awesome. Okay, so everything is working. So now that is done, so we're done with our backend. We can start with the big part, which is creating the front end, creating the design, adding Redux, and then yeah, that's basically that then. So from there you can optimize and customize the application as you'd like. So we are done with the backend folder completely now, so we can close all of this up, and now we will be working inside of the front end. So I'm just going to clean up the front end here. We will not be using this app.test. We do not need the logo.svg, and the setup.test we don't need as well. So I'm just going to clean all of these up so it doesn't look so intimidating. All this is fine. In the index.css, I'm just going to remove everything. In the app.js, I'm gonna remove the logo import. I'm gonna remove this header, and I'm just going to say hello world, and I'm gonna rename this to app to go with the BEM convention. And then in app.css, I'm also just gonna remove everything. So we've done the file setup. So let's save and let's see if this runs. So in our terminal, we can cd out of the backend and just run npm run dev, and this should start everything up. We should see our server starting up, MongoDB connection, and here we have our React app. In it just says hello world. So let's get started by building our front end. So I'm just gonna go back to where we are over here. We've done our cleanup. So in our app.js, I'm just going to do a little bit of a markup and plan what we're going to be needing. So first off, we're going to need a nav bar. So the nav bar, we're going to need a side drawer, and then we're going to need some backdrop that would be placed behind the side drawer. So these two things will show together, and we only show the side drawer on mobile view. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to need to have a home screen, and then we're going to need to have a product screen where we view the individual product. Then we're going to have a cart screen. So these are the three screens we're going to be needing, and these are the nav bars. You can say both of them would be kind of nav bars. This would be the mobile one, the desktop one, and this would be the mobile nav bar. So let's start by creating these three components up here. So in my source file folder, I'm going to say components. And in here, I'm going to create their files. So I'm going to say navbar.js, and then I'm going to have a navbar.css. I'm going to create a side drawer.js and a side drawer.css. Then the last one is going to be a backdrop.js and a backdrop.css, just like that. So I'm going to close these up for now. Let's start by just doing the nav bar. So I'm going to save this. In here I'm just going to run my snippet RAFCE. We can remove this line for React import, as we don't need that anymore with React 17. So you can say import, and then we're just going to import the style sheet, the nav bar. I forgot to take off the multi-cursor. Import navbar.css, and we're going to give this a semantic tag of nav, and then we're going to give it a class name of navbar so that we can stick to the naming convention. So you can say nav and give this navbar. Okay, so inside of the nav bar, we're going to divide this up into different sections as well. The first section is going to be our logo. We're going to have our logo. The next section will be our links. So we're going to have our unordered list of our links. And then the last section will be our hamburger menu. So let's start by creating the logo. So down here, the logo is going to be wrapped in a div. And we can give this a class name of navbar__logo, and in here it's just basically going to be a h2, and we're going to say Mern shopping cart. Okay, and then the links, we're going to have an unordered list, a ul, just like this, and we'll give this a class name of navbar__links, and then in here we have our allies. So each one of the allies will contain a link that would help us with the routing. So we'll import React Router DOM in just a sec. Let's just finish building this up. So this will not have a class name. We'll just use CSS selectors to get there. And in here we will use the link tag. So we'll say link, capital letter link, and then close this up. And in the link tag, we will be adding an icon as well as the text cart and then some span. So if you remember, we had the shopping cart trolley, and then we had the word cart, and then we had this little circle, and inside of the circle we had the cart amount. So let's first actually import React Router DOM. So I'm just going to go to my terminal, going to cd into the front end, and in here I'm going to npm I. Let's actually quickly install all of our dependencies. So we're going to have Axios, we're going to have React-Router-DOM, we're going to have Redux, we're going to have React-Redux, and then we're going to have, I think it's Redux thunk, just like that. I think this is all of it. So it's Axios, React-Router-DOM, Redux, React-Redux, and Redux thunk. Oh, and then it's the Redux DevTools, I believe. Let me just check. Yes, so we have the Redux-DevTools-extension. Just like that. Just make sure everything is correct. Okay, and we'll run this. This should install everything for us. Okay, so once that is done, we can now import at the top here. We can say import link from React Router DOM. So now we have access to this link, and this link will go to the cart page. So we can say /cart. And before we actually can use these links, we have to wrap our app application with the browser router. So let's quickly do that. Sorry, I'm working a bit confusing here. But in here we can import from React Router DOM. We have to import the browser router, and we're just going to rename this as router. Then we need a switch and a route component. And in here we can actually place these. We're going to have a main tag in here. So we can say main. And in this main tag we'll be placing our routing screens. So in here we'll have a switch statement, and the switch component will have route components. Copy that down. So the first route will go to, it's a exact path of /, and this would just be our home screen component. So we can say component, and then in here we'll have a home screen component. So for now we don't have anything set up for that. We'll do that in just a sec. The next route will go to also an exact path of, I think this is product. So we can say /product, and then it has some ID. So each product will have an ID, and this will render the product screen. Let's say component, and this will render the product screen. The next thing we'll need is the cart route. So we can say exact path is equal to /cart, and this will render the cart component, cart screen component. So we can cart screen, here we can say product screen, and here we can say home screen. Okay, so we haven't created them yet, so it's going to complain about this. We can remove this from down here. We first have to wrap our entire application with the router. So we can say router, and then take this and wrap our entire application. Just like that. Now we can actually remove this div, now that I think about it, because we don't want the nav bars inside here. So let's quickly just create these files so that it doesn't give us an error. So inside of our source folder, I'm going to create a new folder called screens. And in there, I'm going to have a home screen.js. I'm going to have a home screen. Why does it keep on doing that? Inside of the screens, I'm going to have a home screen.css. I'm going to have a product. Again, it does that. Why? I'm going to have a product screen.js. I'm going to have a product screen.css, and then I'm gonna have a cart screen.js, and the next one is a cart screen.css. Okay, so now we've created all of our screens. So let's just close all of the CSS folders for now. And in each one of the screens, I'm just going to run RAFCE, and we can remove this once again. Let's import the home screen CSS file. We give this a class name of home screen, and in here we can just say home screen so that it just loads nicely. So here we can say RAFCE. We can remove this import and just change this to product screen.css. We can give this class name of product screen, and in here we can say product screen. Save that. Last one, RAFCE. Here we can import the cart.css, screen.css, and we can give this class name of cart screen. And then in the div we can just say cart screen and save this. Okay, so we can close these up now. And then in here in the app we can just import them. So I like to name them as screens, and then we can import the home screen from the screens and home screen. And I'm going to copy this down for the product screen and the cart screen, just like that. So if we save this, this should all be fine now. We installed all of our dependencies. Sorry about that deviation from the navbar, but now the links should work. Yeah, this looks fine. Okay, so back to the navbar, what we're actually doing. In here, in the link, we're going to have an icon, the shopping cart icon, and then we're going to have the text cart, and then we're going to have, what are we going to have there? Let's see. Oh, we're going to have that circle, so this is going to be a span that contains the count of the cart. So I'm just going to set this to 0. I'm going to give this a class name of cart logo _ badge. And yes, that's that for the link, for the first link. So we can actually copy this down. We will not be using the icon. We'll just have the text that says shop, and this will take us to the slash page, so back to the home page. Okay, the next thing is the hamburger menu. The hamburger menu is going to be a div, and inside of the div we're going to create 3 more divs to create this hamburger looking effect. We'll give this a class name of hamburger _ menu, and this will have an on click, but we'll get to that in a later stage. So now we've created all of these, so we can remove these. The last thing we need to do is get these icons. So here we're going to have an icon, and we're going to give it a class name of some font awesome icon. So in order to do that, we're going to need to import the font awesome CDN. So I'm going to go back to my web browser, and here I'm going to say cdns.js, and this will take you to this web page, and in here you just search font awesome, and I'm going to take this first one, and then you can see I've selected this one previously. We just copy this css/all.min.css, we copy this tag, we can close this down, go back to our application, and in the publics folder in the index.html we can add our script tag over here. I'm just clearing all of this, and here we can add our link tag for font awesome. We can save this. We can actually rename this as well to Mern shopping cart and save. So now we have access to the following icons. So we can say FAS space FA dash shopping dash cart, and this looks like all of it. So if you were to save this, to reformat it and bring this into our app component, we can import this as components. So I like to call this components, and here we can import navbar from the components folder and the navbar file. And we can place the navbar as a component down here. And if we were to save this and go check out our screen, we can now see the navbar. The styling is really ugly, but we'll get there in just a second. So I can see there's this margin around the corner. If we were to view the inspector, we can see we have this unwanted margin in our HTML tag. So if we check here, we have some, or is in the body? Yeah, in the body we have this margin around, and we want to remove that. So we can go into the index.css, and here we say asterisk, and here we can say remove all padding, remove all margin, and then give us a box sizing of border box, just like that. I'm gonna also go to the body tag. I'm gonna style it by saying font or font family and set this to Arial. You can choose any other font you'd like. I just like Arial for now. And we can set the background color of our application. We can set this background color to F4, 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 just giving it this off white. And the next thing I want to style is all the images should have a width of 100% and should be object fit contain. So it would just take all of its container and then fit into the container. So that's the global styles. We won't be touching index.css again. So in our app we can bring this in, and if we were to save and go back, we can see there's no margin or unwanted padding we didn't style ourselves. Okay, so if I were to click here, it actually routes to our different screens. Now we can see it changing up in the URL and down here. And if we were to go to /product, we can see, oh, it should be product / and then some ID. So we can see the product screen being loaded there. Okay, so back to the home screen. Let's finish our navbar style. So our navbar style here looks complete. So let's go into the navbar.css, and in here we're going to be styling our navbar. So the first thing we're going to target is this nav bar over here. So we can say navbar dot navbar, and here we can give it the following style. We can say width of 100%. We can give it a background color of this matte black. We can display it as flex. So what this was going to do is just going to push all of the items, so this item, this item, and this item next to each other. And then we can say justify content space between. So this would just push each of the items away from one another. And here we can say align items to center. And we can give the navbar a padding of top of 1.5 rem and left and right of 1 rem. So it would just give them some space at the sides and at the top. And then the last thing, we have to give this navbar a Z index of 50, as we're going to have a backdrop and a side drawer that should slide over these. So if I were to save this and go back to our application, we can now see the following happening. So this is the hamburger icon somewhere over here. That's why it's spread out like this. And then we have the padding. You can see the padding and so forth. So let's continue by styling the logo. So we want to style this nav logo. We can go nav logo, and we want to style the H2 inside of it. We want to give this a color of this off-white again. We want to give it a font size of 1.4 rem, and then we want to give it a cursor of pointer. So if you want to let them be able to click on the icon and take them back to the home screen, you should just wrap a link over it like that. So if we check, the icon logo looks like this right now. So it's starting to get some shape. So the next thing we want to do is style this unordered list. So we're going to copy this UL, and then we're going to go paste it down here and style that class. So we want to display flex. So this will allow all of the links inside of the UL to sit next to each other, we want to give it a list style of none, and then we want to align items to the center. If we were to save that and go back, we can see it sitting next side to one another. So now we want to style the UL inside of this nav link. So I'm just going to use the CSS selector and go and find all of the allies inside there. And I want to give it a padding of, let's say padding left of 1.5 rem. If I were to save that and go back, you can see it's pushed away from each other like that. So this is awesome. Next thing we want to do is style the actual A tag inside. So this link gets translated to an A tag. That is why it is this purple color. So we want to style that. So once again, I'm going to use this selector up here and just navigate to that A tag. And we can give the A tag the following style. We can say text decoration of none. So it takes away that blue. That underline, sorry, and then we can give it a color of the exact same off-white we had previously. You can actually set this in CSS variables in your index.html, index.css, and then just reference the variables, but I'm just going to type it out quickly like this. So you can say font size of these A tags, we're going to set this equal to 1.2 rem. Then we're going to have them display flex, so each one of these links are going to have display flex, and the reason for this is just you'll see in just a second. And right here we can align items to the center, and if we save this and go back, we can now see that they have these nice white color. The reason we display flex is so that this badge and the cart icon are all just nice and centered with one another. Okay, the next thing we want to do is style this span. So we want to style, let's see, yeah, we want to style that span. Okay, so I'm once again going to select this and dive deeper into our component, our CSS nesting. So we can say style the span, and we're going to give it a display of flex. So whatever is in that span will be centered into the middle. So we can say align items and set this to center and give it a margin left of 8 pixels. And if we save this and go back to our screen, we can see that these are pushed away from one another. So I'm actually going to, I actually want the cart item to be separate as well. So if I go back here, I want to add this part in a span. So I'm going to add a span here, and then I'm just going to pull that straight up in there. So if I were to save this and go back, we can see it's pushed out. Now we have to style this individual link. So this badge over here. So let's quickly do that. We call that this. So another thing we want to add here is just to the link, we want to add a class name of cart underscore link. So this is just the link for the cart, so we can style this properly. So I'm going to copy this, save it, and then here, down here, we want to style this cart link. We want to give it a background of 333. We want to give it a padding of 10 pixels all around, and then we want to give it a border radius of 8 pixels. And if we were to save this and go back, it looks like this right now. So we have this kind of a buttonish look. Okay, so the next thing we want to style is give it a hover. So on this cart link, we can say the hover, and then we want to change the background color to this nice pinkish color. So I'm gonna copy it down here, set the pink color, so it's DD219E, and then we want to give the text the color of this off-white again. So if we were to go back and now hover, we can see it changing like so. Next thing we want to style is this icon badge. So we're going to copy that and give it a style of width of 30 pixels, a height of 30 pixels, and then we're going to give it a background of that off-white. Then we're going to give it a border radius of 50%, so it's round. Then we give it a margin to the left of 8 pixels. We can give it a color, so whatever's inside of it of black color, so that matte black color we're using. Then just gonna scroll up here. Then we can give it a display of flex, so whatever is inside of that span will be centered. So we can say justify content center, we can say align item center, and then we can say text align center, just like that. And then we want to give it a font size of 1 rem. If we were to save that and go back, we can now see it is styled with the circle, the 0 is centered in the middle, and we have this nice hover effect. So we're getting there. So we're going to remove the hamburger icon in just a second with a media query, and then put it back when we get to smaller views. Okay, so once that is done, we can quickly style the hamburger icon. So we're going to style this menu over here, paste in that class, and here we're going to give it a width of 100%. Actually no, we want to give it a width of 30 pixels. We're going to give it a height of 30 pixels. And then we want to display this as flex, but we'll display it as none in just a second. I just want to see the styling. We want to give it the flex direction, so each one of the divs should be in a column. And then we want to justify content and set this space between, so it pushes all of these divs in the height away from each other. And I want to align items to the center, so that all divs are just in the center. And then I want to give it a cursor of pointer, just like that. So if I were to go back and save, refresh, okay, so something is not showing up here. Okay, so the reason this is not showing up is it's actually there. We can see there it's a hamburger icon, but we haven't given it a color yet. So let's style the individual divs inside. So we can say each one of the divs should have a background color, so it should have a width of 100%. It should have a height of 3 pixels each, and a background color of that off-white. If we were to save and go back, now we can see the hamburger icon being displayed. So it's all coming together. The last thing we need to do is give it a hover state. So if we were to hover over this hamburger menu, I'm just going to place it down here. If we hover over this, we want to select the divs and change their color. So we want to give them a background color of that same pink we have down here. So if we save this and go back, we can see if we hover over it now, it gives it this pinkish look. Okay, the next thing we need to do is style the responsiveness of this nav bar. So the first thing we need to do is change this display to none. So we're going to set this to none. So now it would push everything away like this. And then we get to a certain size, we can set the hamburger menu to display flex again. So our media queries are going to look as follow. We're going to say add media, and then we're going to have a max width of, not max width of 960 pixels. This is where I want the screen to start becoming mobile. So I'm going to say navbar links, navbar underscore links. So it's these over here where we display flex. So if I were to show it here, it's these two items over here are the nav links. We want to hide them on mobile. So I'm going to say display of none. So if we to save and go back, and when I get 960 pixels, which is around here, it hides. You can see it over here. And instead of it hiding and showing nothing, when we get to this size, I want the mobile hamburger menu to show. So I'm going to go back to the media query, and in here I'm just going to copy this over here, paste it, and we want here it is display none, so here we want it to be display flex. If we save that and go back, we should now see it being switched with the hamburger icon. So we can see the the nav bar has this kind of a jump, and we kind of don't want this, so we have to set a dynamic height on the nav bar. So let's see what is the calculated height over here. Computed height is 110 pixels, so let's just set the nav bar height to 110 pixels. 110 pixels and save. So now we won't see that jump, so it doesn't have that jump anymore. We just see those changing. So last thing we need to do for the nav bar is one more media query, and we want the nav bar logo size to not be that big. So if we get around about here to 500 pixels, we don't want the navbar logo to be this huge, so we want to style it smaller. So we can say add media and give it a max width of 500 pixels. And here I want to style the navbar H2. So here we gave it a font size of 1.4 rem. And down here, if we get to that size, I want to change the font size to 1 rem, just 1 rem. If we go back, we can see it's smaller now. So if we go from big screens, we can see the navbar is totally mobile friendly now. So this is about the size of the X, the iPhone X is there. So we have this nice looking navbar. Next thing we want to do is create our side drawer and backdrop. So we are done with the navbar. Now we can close all of these up. And in our app component, we can see this side drawer and backdrop. So let's quickly create those. So in our components folder, we already have the side drawer. So we can open the side drawer. Let's quickly do the backdrop. This is the easiest one. And we're gonna create our component again by rafce. Then we're going to import our style sheet. So we can just say backdrop.css, and we give this a style of class name, and it's a backdrop. Save. It doesn't have to have anything inside, and we can give it a style of backdrop. And the backdrop style is also pretty simple. We just say, we give it a width of 100%, so it takes up the entire width of the page. We want to give it a height of 100 viewport height, so whatever viewport it is on, take 100% of that. We want to give it a background color of this RGBA value. It's 0, 0, 0, and then 0.5 transparency. And then we want to give it a Z index above the navbar. So we gave the navbar an index, Z index of 50. We give the backdrop a Z index of 100. And we want it to be position fixed. So whenever you scroll, it doesn't move. It just stays inside of your viewport. And so we position it top 0 and left 0. If we were to save this and import this component in our app component, we can change this to backdrop, and then we can just place the backdrop in here. So if we were to go back to our component, we can see this transparent looking backdrop being shown. So it's currently showing the whole time. So we'll do this, the hide and show of this in just a second when we're done with the side drawer. So let's create this side drawer component. So I'll be closing this, and let's go to the side drawer, and we can say rafce, and then import the side drawer style sheet. Oh, that's the wrong one, .css. And here I'm just going to give it a name of class name of side drawer, but it's actually important we're going to give it dynamic styles. But first let's give it a side drawer so we can see it. Side drawer, just like that, and we can save it for now. And then in its style sheet we can say .side drawer and give this a style of the following. You can give it a style and set the width equal to 70% of the page. We want to give it a height of the full 100 viewports. We want to give it a background color of white, so it just contrasts from the body. And then we can give it a position fixed as well. So in here, we don't want this to scroll with the page, we want it to stay the same. We can give it a top of 0 and left of 0. And then we need to give it a Z index of above the backdrop. So I'm going to set this equal to 200. So the backdrop was 100, the navbar was 50, and this is 200. So this is awesome. If you go back and this is imported, we can save, and now we can import this from here, give this side drawer, and then we can import the component down here and save. Now we can see this side drawer menu on the side, so we have this looking like this. So this is really nice, but the problem is now it just shows the whole time, so we have to put in some logic or state to toggle this. So inside of our app component, I'm going to import useState. So say import useState from React. And here we're going to have a toggle state. So it would work as follows. Every time I click on the backdrop, it should close. And every time I click on the navbar icon, it should open. So in here, we can have const equals to useState, and we initially set this to false. And in the state, we're going to give it a name of side toggle and set side toggle, just like that. So initially it is false. So to these components, so the side drawer and the backdrop, we have to pass the value of show. And this show value will be equal to whatever the side toggle is. So if this is false, it would be hidden. If it's true, it would show. So you can just copy this and paste it in here. And the same goes for the backdrop. We can give it that exact same value to check. So we can save this, and now in here, in our backdrop, we're going to destructure that show prop we passed in. And now we want to only return if show is true. So we can say show, and then just put double ampersand, and this would say, if show is true, then do this. So if we were to save this, the backdrop should actually disappear now, so we can't see the backdrop anymore. But now we have to implement the logic for the side drawer. So in the side drawer, we have the following logic. We'll display some style so that it moves into the screen and out of the screen. So here, we're once again going to destructure the show prop. But here we'll have the following logic. So we'll create a style dynamically for that div. So we're going to say const side drawer style, or just say class, is equal to side drawer, the one we have down here. So this is the initial class it would be equal to. And here we say if show is equal to true. So if show is true, we want to take the side drawer class and push onto that array a new style of show. So this should push a new style of show onto this item. So we'll create the show style right now. And in here, we just remove this and add side drawer class dot join, and we join these two items in the array with a space between them. So it will add them as a style string. So if I were to save this, we'll still see the side drawer because we have to change these styles. So if we go into the styles, what I want to do is make it move in and out of the screen transition nicely. So I'm going to have a transform and translate the X position 100% out of the screen. And then I want a transition of all, and this should be 0.3 seconds, and I'm going to say ease out. So it starts fast and ends slow. So if we've done that and save, we can see that the side drawer is no longer in the screen. So that is the translate X minus 100. And the next thing we want to do is add the side drawer show. So we can say side drawer dot show, because when the show is set to true, it would add this class to our component. And all we want to do here is transform, translate it back. So we can say translate X back to zeros where it was before. So here you can't see it. So if I go to my components and in my app, and I change this equal to true, you can see it slides in like this. So I'm going to check it, uncheck it, check it, uncheck it. So it has this nice sliding animation, and the backdrop comes out as well. So we're getting there. Only a few more things to do with the navbar. So we want to make sure when we click on this button that it opens the drawer. So let's do that. So in our navbar component, this button, this hamburger, should have an on click. So we can pass in here an on click. So whenever something is clicked on it, we want to change the state in the app component. We want to change this to true. So we can pass here, what did I call it in my project? Let's see. We can set toggle, so we can add a click event here to the navbar. So we're passing a click event to the navbar, and this click event is just a function that calls the set side toggle and sets the state equal to true. So now in my navbar component, I can destructure that click listener or that click event. So I can go to the props and destructure the click. And here I just pass the click to the on-click event of the hamburger. So if we were to go now we can see it opening and closing. So just like that. So it's false now. If I click on it, it goes to true. So now I want to do the exact same but in reverse for the hamburger, for the backdrop, excuse me. So I believe we're done with the navbar now, so we can close that. So in the backdrop, I want to also pass it an on-click event. So here I can pass a click prop, and all this click prop should do is it should set the set that state equals to false. So there's probably a better way of implementing this for using stuff like modals as well. But for this specific backdrop, I'm displaying I'm passing it this click event to toggle this state value. So inside of the backdrop, I can now destructure that click as well, and we can place an on-click listener on the backdrop div itself and pass it that click value. And we can save this, and all this should do is turn it to false. So if I were to save this, our navbar should work now. Boom. Very nice. Very, very nice. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is pass a click listener to the side drawer as well, because the side drawer is going to have navigation items, and when we were to click on the navigation items, we want the side drawer to close. So let's finish styling the side drawer first, so we can close the backdrop. And in the side drawer, we're going to have the following things. We're going to need these these links. Why is it not working? These links should be in our side drawer as well. So we're not going to refactor them into their own components. We're just going to recreate them. So in here, we can open this, and now we're going to style our side drawer. And in here, in the div, we're going to have the following things. We're going to have an unordered list, and this unordered list will have a class name of side drawer __ links. And in here, we'll pass that on click listener. So anything that is clicked inside of the UL, the unordered list, will cause it to close the side drawer. So we can just pass the click in like this. We haven't passed the click in here yet, so we can actually do that. It would be exactly the same as this one. So we can copy this and paste it down there. Save that. Okay, now we can continue with this. So in here we'll have an ally, and inside of the ally we'll have a link tag again. So we can import the link tag. So we can say import link from React Router DOM, and we can add the link in here. So we can say link, and this should have an icon. Once again, that same class of shopping cart. So we can say FAS FA-shopping-cart, and then we'll have the text that says cart and a new span. We actually want to place this inside of a span. So we want all of this inside of a span. Okay, so we can move this above. And in the span, I'll have the text of cart. And in the span, I'll have another span of the class name underscore underscore. And we'll give this a class name of side drawer underscore underscore cart badge. And this will just set to 0 for now. This will dynamically render afterwards. So this looks fine. The next thing we need to pass is another ally, and this ally would just be a link that goes to the shop page. And we can set the 2 equals to just the slash route. And then we can set this 2 equals to the cart route, so it will take us to the cart. If we were to save this and go back, we can see these 2 items in here. So this is really ugly. We want to center them in the middle and give them nice style. So let's quickly do that. Go into the sidedrawer.css, and here we're going to style the links. So I'm going to say sidedrawer underscore underscore links. So it's that unordered list. This one over here. Now I'm going to give that a style of display flex. We want to flex direction column of column, and then we want to list style of none. We have to save this and go back. We can see it didn't change much, but it did change. So next thing we can see side drawer links, and we want to style the allies. So here we can give each individual ally a display of flex and align items of center. So this would just help once again with the cart and the badge. The next thing is the side drawer links, and then we'll go into the allies and style the individual A tags. So these A tags will have the following style. We can say display flex. We can align items to the center. We can justify content to the center. And let's see what we can do. We can display it as flex 1. So it would give us the entire space. We can say text align center. Give it flex of 1. We give it padding of 1 rem. And we can give it a text decoration of none. And then we can give it a color of that matte black we are using right through, and we can give it a font size of 1.6 rem. 1.6 rem. Just like this. You just save. We first have to add a few things up here to see this effect. So we can see it's on the top like this. So you can leave it like this if you want, but I want to center it in the middle. So in order to do that, we have to make the side drawer display of flex. And we need flex direction column. Set that to column. And then we want to justify items or justify content to the center. So if we were to save this, we can see that it is now placed in the center. So we have this nice looking side drawer. I want to give these a hover state. So the links over here, I want to give it a hover state. So when you hover over them, I want to give it a background of that matte black. I want to change the color to that off-white. And then I want to add, okay, let's save this and see what we have. We have this nice looking hover effect now. Okay, so the next thing I want to add is the style of this this badge over here. So I'm first of all going to give this two spans a separation. So if we navigate to the side drawer links and the ally and then the A tag and then the span, we can give it a display of flex. We can align items to the center, and we can give it a margin to the left of 8 pixels. We can save this, and now we can see it has this separation between them. Okay, so the last thing we need to style is this badge. And we can style the badge by doing the following. We can say side drawer link. No, we actually gave that a name. Let's go check it out. Side drawer badge. We gave it a name here. And we want to give this a display of flex. Align items to the center. We want to justify content to the center. And we can say text align to the center as well, just center everything. We want to give that a width of 30 pixels. We want to give it a height of 30 pixels, and you have to set this, otherwise the border radius is not going to give it a round border. And then we set border radius equals to 50%, and we can give it a background color of that matte black. And we can give the inside color, so the text inside that off-white color. And then the last thing we need to do is add the font size of 1 rem. And then give it a margin left as well, so it just pushes away from the cart text of 8 pixels. Save this and go back. Now you can see it has this nice looking thing. Okay, so when we hover, we actually want to change this icon background to white and the inner text. So we can do that by once again copying this up here. And if we copy that, we can now go to this item. So we copy this item and say when we hover over a tag, we want to switch this icon's text. We want to switch the colors. We want to change the background color to this off-white, and we want to give the color inside of that matte black. So if we were to save that, now it has this nice contrast. Okay, so we're basically done with the styling. The last thing I want to do is make sure if I go to non-mobile view, I don't want the side drawer to show anymore. So I'm going to set a media query, add media, and set the max width equal to 960, because that is when the side drawer is allowed to show. We want to set side drawer equal to display of none. So we can say display of none. So up here we gave it a display of flex, and it actually doesn't matter, it's just going to remove it. So we're going to show. Okay, so this should actually not be max, it should be min. So here it will show, but when we go here it won't show anymore. So the backdrop still will show because you can use it for modals. When you're on this screen you still need a backdrop for modals, but when you're here the side drawer does not show. So now we have this nice looking side drawer. So that's awesome. Next thing we want to do is start styling our individual screens, getting our screens mobile friendly, and then once we're done with the styling of the screens we can implement Redux and then do the logic from there, talking to our backend and so forth. So let's quickly do that. The first thing I want to style is our home screen. Okay, so now we're going to do the home screen, so we can close all of these up, and we want to style this home screen component. So in our screens, go to home screen and open the home screen CSS as well. So I know the styling of these is a bit tedious, but I got a lot of requests telling me to do everything from scratch, and this helps them learn. So I'm doing it now, and I hope you enjoy it. Stick with me. Take breaks in between the videos and make the journey a bit more fun. Okay, so in the home screen we're going to have our home screen div, and then I'm going to have a h2 that says latest products, and I'm going to give this a class name of home screen title underscore title. Next thing we're going to have in here is a div that has the products inside of them. So we're going to have a div, and this div is going to be class name underscore home screen underscore products. So this will contain all of our products, and in here we're going to display the products. So each individual product is going to have its own component. We're going to reuse that product component. So in here we're going to render our product. We're going to pass it a few pieces of data, but we're going to render the product over here. So let's actually style the home screen. Although we can't see the product yet, let's just style the home screen. We can say home screen and give this a max width of this pixel width of 1300 pixels. We're going to give it a margin of at the top of 1 rem and at the sides of auto, so it would center this almost like a container. So if we were to go back and stretch this open, you can see the home screen is no longer on the side. It has like this centered container type of effect. So you can create a container class in CSS and just wrap everything around, but I just use this in my demo project. So okay, next thing we want to do is style the home screen title underscore title, and we want to give this font size of 1.5 rem. We want to give it a color of that matte black. We want to give it a margin at the bottom of 1 rem and a margin left of 8 pixels. The next thing we want to do is style the home screen products, so underscore products, and this is going to be a grid container. So we're going to say display grid, and here we're going to do a lot of media queries to resize the grid for different screen sizes. So you can say grid template columns, and the initial size we'll set to repeat 4 items, and we set each one of them to 1 fragment. So if we were to save this, we won't really see the grid now because there's no items in them. So let's go into our product screen and let's create this product component. So I'm going to create this product component inside of our components folder. Here I'm gonna call it product.js, and I'm gonna give it a style file as well as product.css. So inside of the product.js, I'm just gonna create my component again. I'm going to import the style sheet. So this is kind of the same thing over and over again, just getting the boilerplate set up. I'm going to give it a class name of product, and let's start with building how this product will look like. So I'm going to first hard code all of the values in here. So we're going to have an image tag for the product, and this source and alt I'll get in just a second. Just going to hard code it for now. I'm gonna give this div a class name of product underscore info. So this will contain all of the info about that product, and we'll have a p tag which has a class name of info underscore name. Then we have another p tag that contains the description, so you can say give this a class name of info underscore description, and in here we'll just have some lorem ipsum of, let's say, 15 for now. We'll give it a title of product 1, and then we'll need to add another p tag that has the price. So we can just add the price like this by saying a $, and then say $4.99.99, and then we'll need a product, a button that takes us to this product. So you can add here, import the link again from React DOM. So import link from React DOM, and then we use this link as a button. So you'll give it a class name of info underscore button, and we'll just set the text equal to view. So we'll view that item, and we'll set a to prop on this to go to, let's set it to backticks. So we'll go to /product and then add the product ID. So we'll just set this product ID to this for now, but we'll dynamically render the product ID afterwards. So I'm just gonna grab an image URL and paste it in there. Okay, so we can go into the data folder in our backend and then just grab this URL over here, copy that, close this, and paste it in here. We'll dynamically render them here and just give it a product name. And then just give this price a name of info __ price. So if we were to save this and go back to our application, we can see this unstyled but card looking thing, and you can see that it has the grid now. You can see the grid being grid item 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so let's style the individual product card. So inside of our cards.css, we're first going to get the product and then we're going to give it a width of 300 pixels. We're going to give it padding inside of 1 rem. We're going to give it a background color so that it just stands out from the body of just white. We're going to give it a cursor of pointer. You don't really have to do the cursor pointer. If you wrap this item inside of a link, you can use the cursor pointer, and then instead of using this view, but I can actually remove this. Let me remove that. And then I can say box shadow. I'm going to give it this nice looking box shadow of 0, 4 pixels, excuse me, 1 pixel and then 4 pixel, and then RGBA of 0, 0, 0, and then 0.4. Then we give it a margin at the top and bottom of 8 pixels, and then the left and right, it should be centered in the grid container, and then we will display this item as flex. So everything inside of the product container will have a flex direction of column, so everything in here will be aligned below each other. And here we can just say justify content space between, and yeah, this should be it. So if I were to save this and go back, we can see this nice looking card box style being rendered. So now let's style each of the individual items inside of the card. So I'm first going to style the image. Just going to give the image a fixed height, so I'm going to give it a height of 170 pixels. So all images that come into here should have the same height, so that the cards just stay the same level, because the images differ and this will change the size of the card. I want to give the image a border radius of 8 pixels, so it just gives it the slight radius. So if we save and go back, okay, we have to style the image. Save and go back, we can see the image is set to a certain size and it has this nice looking just slight border radius. Next thing we want to style is the product __ info, and we want to get all of the p tags. We want to give all of the p tags this same style. We want to give them a margin bottom of 8 pixels. So if we save this and go back, we can see they are pushed away from one another. Next thing we want to do is give the info price a style, so we can say info price, and give the info price style of font bold, so it would just stand out because the price is important, and weight of bold. And save, go back, you can see it's standing out a little bit more. Next thing we want to do is style the info name, so you can say _info name, and we want to give this a font size of 1 rem and overflow of hidden. So if it becomes too long, we don't want the entire card to like press up against or look mushy, so it would just kind of cut off the name. So it's fine for me. If you don't like this, you can just leave this out. And then the next thing of info _ description, I want to give this a style of font size a little bit smaller than the rest of the info. So if we were to save this and go back, we now have this looking application. And the last thing we want to style is the info button and give it a hover state. So we want to say info _ button. So we want to display it as block. We want to give it a width of the entire container. We want to give it a text decoration of 9 because it's a link, so we don't want the link decorations. We can give it a text align center, so whatever is inside of this button should be in the center. We can give the color inside of this black. We can give the background color of the off-white, and then we can actually make the back. Yeah, let's see how this looks. Yeah, that's fine. And then we can give it padding inside of 8 pixels and 16 pixels left and right. Save, it gives it a little bit. Now we just need a border. Give it a border, and we can set this border equal to 1 pixel solid, and then this matte black color. We give it a font size of 1 rem. And I think that is about that. If we save it and go back, we can see this nice looking button, but now we want to give it a hover state and just switch or inverse the colors. So here we can say change the background color now to this black, this matte black, and then change the color inside to the off-white. Save this and go back. This should be hover, sorry. And save and go back. Now every time I hover, it changed the look of this button. So we're getting there. Last thing I want to do for this item itself is when we get to certain screen sizes, I want to adjust the width of how it is displayed. So this is going to be a few media queries, but let me add a few more items. So I'm going to add a few more products in our home screen. So I'm going to render, let's say, that amount. Yeah. Okay, so now I want to style how they change media query wise. So let's make this responsive. So in our home screen .css, I now here want to add a few media queries. So the media queries is going to be on the different breakpoints. We're going to say media and give it a breakpoint at max width of 232 pixels. This can differ from whatever screen you're using, or computer or web browser, so just check it out and then just adjust this. This on my screen is that, and I want to change the home screen products, and I want to set the grid template columns equal to repeat of 3. So instead of having 1FR, instead of having 4 like up here, when it gets to this breakpoint, I only want 3 in a row. So that is what we're styling over here. So if we go back, we can see it being adjusted. When we get to, it's about 2, there, it went to 3. Okay, so that's nice. But now we would like the items to span bigger sizes. So the individual box width, the product's box width should be more. So let's just finish all of the breakpoints on the window on the home screen. Next one is, we can actually copy this because it's going to be the same thing, just different breakpoints. Here we have a breakpoint of 950 pixels, and I want to change this to 2FR. And then I'm going to paste this down here once more again. And if we get to 630 pixels, I only want it to have 1 column. If I save this and go back, we can see the adjustment happening. Okay, so now I want to style how each of the product components look at different breakpoints. So we just want to adjust the sizes. You can leave it like this, but I just made it more responsive doing it this way. So in the home screen, we're done with the home screen CSS for now. And in the product CSS, we're going to have a lot of media queries. So here I'm going to say media and give it a max width of the same one, the first breakpoint of the home screen. And here I want to give the product a width of 360 pixels. And if I save this and go back, if I get to this breakpoint here, you can see the boxes became bigger. It just looks nicer in my opinion doing it like this. And now I want to style it for all of the other breakpoints. So I'm just going to copy this down a few times. And the next breakpoint is at 1115. And we want to give it the box size a width of 330 pixels. If we go back, we go here, and then the next block size is You can see it happening around here. Slight, but it did change. Let's just check it again. Yeah. Okay, the next size I want to give it is at 1028. And I want to give this a size of 300 pixels then. So if I go back and watch this happen, 300 and... So here we can see it kind of makes weird. It's like this media query is not firing off for some reason. Let's see what I did wrong here. So this one is not firing off. Oh, okay, so I saw what I was doing wrong. So just remove all of the other media queries down below, because that keeps on overriding them to 360 pixels. Sorry about that, that was a newbie's mistake. The next thing we need to do here is add the next breakpoint of 1028 and set this to 300 pixels. So if I go back and view it now, you can see it changed. So you can now see the different box sizing. So here about 15 it should become smaller over there, and then once again over here it becomes smaller, and then the next size is the breakpoint for mobile. So you can set this equal to 950 and save. So when it gets to 950 breakpoint, so around here, we would like it to take a bigger width, so of 400 pixels. So now it takes up a bigger screen size. The next media query is when it gets to 830 pixels. We now want to make it a little bit smaller again, so we're gonna set it back to 230 pixels. So if we were to see this in action, it goes here, and then 830 is when it's almost close to one another, around about here. Then it becomes a little bit smaller again. You can actually make this a little bit bigger, but well, you can see the media queries in action. Another breakpoint is at 700 pixels, and we want to set the size here to 290 pixels of each other. Get there, you can see it changed. And then there's two more, or three more we have at 630 pixels. We can set this equal to 450 pixels. So if we get to 630, it becomes one item a row, and then we just made it a little bit fatter, so it just takes up a bit more space. And then next one is a breakpoint at 500 pixels. So when we become much more smaller screens, we set this equals to 350, and then the next media query we can add here and set the size equal to 400 pixels and set the size of the box equal to 300. So now it's back to its original size. So if you see this in action, we can see this working perfectly. Here it becomes a little bit smaller, and then smaller again, and here we are on the right size for mobile. So this is perfect. We have this working nicely. The next page we're going to style is our individual page. So if I were to go press view, you can see it redirects to product and then the product ID. We're firstly going to hard code it, and then we're going to dynamically render the values. And then the next page is the cart page, and then we'll set up the Redux. I know this is a long video. I might break this down into 2 videos. But yeah, hopefully you stick with me and still enjoying this. Sorry about the media query, a little bug, but we figured that out. And yes, let's continue. Let's do the product page next for viewing the product. Okay, so let's start with the product screen. I'm gonna speed through this a little bit. So the product screen, we're gonna have a few segments. We're gonna have the product left side and then the product right side. So we can call this one div class name of product screen underscore left, and then I'm just gonna copy this down and name this product screen underscore right. Okay, So the left hand side will have a few things in it. We'll have the left image, so you can create a div for a container for the image. So you can say this is equal to left image, and in here all we're gonna have is an image. And I once again will go and copy that image from our product over here. Just gonna copy this image. We'll add this dynamically when we add Redux. Okay, and then here's just product name. Okay, so that is that piece of the div. The next part in the left side of the screen, we have a div called product info. So we have a div, and you can give it a class name of left info, left underscore info, just like that. And in here we're gonna have 3 p tags. One p tag for the class name. So you can say left underscore name, and then we can add here PlayStation, or just product. Let's just call it product. Product 1. Then we're gonna have another p tag. I'm just copying this down, and this p tag will hold the price. So we can say price is equal to $, and then we just add in some value. We can remove this class name, copy this down again, and then in here we have a description, and this would once again just be some lorem ipsum, and we give it a count of 15, just like that. Okay, and then outside, this is all for inside of the left container. The right container, we're going to have the following. We're going to have a div that is equal to right info, and then some button. So inside of this div, we're going to give it a class name of right underscore info. So this will contain the price, the subtotal, the amount you choose, and so forth. So in this div, we'll have a p tag that says price, and then we'll have a span tag, and inside of the span tag we'll render the price. So I'm just going to add here once again hard-coded values like that. Next one is a p tag of status. So the status will just show if the item is in stock or out of stock. I'm just going to hard code this for now. And then the next p tag is the quantity field. So the quantity, we're going to add a select option, so you can be able to select. I'm just going to remove all of this. And then in here we're going to render a few options. So we're going to give it value and just copy it down. Let's just add 4 for now. This will all be rendered dynamically and like this. And then the last thing, we can add a p tag with a button inside. So the reason I'm using p tags, it just helps with spacing and styling. And we can give this a type of button and give it no class name. We can just say add to cart, just like that. And that should be everything we need for our products page. So if we save this and go back to our page, we can see the image is extremely large, and everything down here is also just very ugly. So let's get to styling this. So inside of my product.screen.css, I'm going to start styling these. So I'm going to say product screen, and then I'm going to give it a max width of 1300. I'm going to give it a margin at the top of 1 rem and center it in the middle. And then I'm going to display this entire container as flex. So this would put everything right next to each other like that. If we actually, yeah, that's fine. And the next thing we want to style is the product screen underscore left hand side. We want to display of flex as well, so it would add them to the side. And then I'm going to give this a flex size of 80% of the screen. So if I save this, it should look a little bit weird because we didn't give this one styling yet. Product screen left side, let's just see if I named that correctly. Copy. Okay. Then it would style it like this. So I think I mistyped this. The next thing we want to style is the left underscore image. I think I gave it that name. Yes, left underscore image. We're going to give this margin of 1 rem. And we want to give this a flex of 60% of its container. So it's in the left, the product left side, we want to give it 60% of that container. Next thing we want to do is left underscore info, and we want to give this a margin as well of 1 rem. We want to give it the flex of the remaining 40% of that container, and then we want to give it a background color of white so it stands out from the body. We want to give it a height and set this equal to fit content. We want to give it a font size of 0.9 rem, so it's a little bit smaller. And then we want to style the left underscore name and give it a font weight of bold, so it just stands out a little bit more. We want to give it a font size of 1.3 rem. Okay, if we save this and go back, we can see it's getting a little bit more shape. We haven't styled this side yet though, but we'll get there. The next thing we want to style is each of the individual p tags inside of the info. So you can say here info and style the p tags as well as the right side. So we want to give the right side underscore info p tags the exact same style. So here we want to give it some padding of 1 rem all around, and we want to give it a border bottom of 1 pixel solid and then some RGB value, RGBA. And here it's going to be 0, 0, 0 and then an opacity of 0.2. If I were to save this and go back, we can see it created this kind of box looking thingy. Now we can see that it adds a border to the bottom of the last item as well, which we don't want. So we're going to remove that by saying dot left underscore info and select the p tag but the last child. And we're going to do the exact same thing for the right info. Here I can just say right, and we want to give this a style the border dash bottom, or just border. We can choose the entire border. We want to give this a border of none. If we save this, we can see it looks much better now. Okay, so next we want to do is style the right side of the screen. So we can say product screen. Instead of left side, we can choose right. And here we want to give it a flex of 0.2. So if you remember, here we gave it a 0.9, a 0.8, and here we give it a 0.2. So it just takes up the rest of the screen size. You can see it's placed nicely now. And then we want to style the right info div. So underscore right info. And here we want to give it a width of 250 pixels. We want to give it a margin of 1 rem, so it's aligned with the rest. We can give it a background of also a white, and we're going to give it the same box shadow as we gave the individual items. So we're going to give it 0, 1 pixel, 4 pixel, and then an RGBA of 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, and then 0.4. If we just save this and go back, we can see it has this nice looking box for the info. Next thing we want to style is the right info's paragraph tags. So right info, and we want to style each of the paragraph tags. We're going to give it a padding of 1 rem. I'm going to give it a font size of 0.8 rem. we want to display it as grid so that it is equally pushed away from each other. You'll see it in just a second. Give it a grid template column and repeat this twice of 1FR. So if we save this and go back, you can see these things are nicely aligned. So if I were to remove that, you can see it's not really aligned at all. It's fine like this, but this looks better in my opinion. Okay, so it's nicely aligned. The next thing we want to style is give the button a style. So the right info p tag, we want to get the button, and we want to give this button the following. We want to give it a grid column, and we want it to span all the way. So we from 1 to -1. So if we check it out, it spans the entire way now. So that's exactly what we want. I'm going to give it a width of 100%. We actually don't need to do that now that I think about it. Yeah, it doesn't actually do anything. Can remove that. And then we want to give it a padding of 10 pixels and 16 pixels. Then we want to give it a background color of the black. We want to give it a color of that off-white. We want to give it a border of that 1 pixel solid, once again that matte black. Give it a cursor pointer, and then we want to give it a border radius of 5. Do we want to do that? Let's see how it looks like this. No, let's just leave it like that. I'm not going to give it a border radius. And the next thing we want to style is the select. So we can just grab the select like this, give it a padding the same as the button. So 16 pixels. We save, it looks much better now. And the last thing we need to do is make this page mobile friendly. So if we take a look at when it starts shrinking, this doesn't look nice at all. So we would like them to be displayed below each other at a certain point. So this media query is just going to be when it hits the mobile screen. So we can say when it's a max width. Why do I keep on doing that? Width of 960 pixels. We want to adjust a few things. We want to adjust the product screen. We want to, instead of making it only flex, we want to set the flex direction to column. So we can just say flex direction is equal to column. If we save that and we go here, you can see it changed that, pushing it down. So we want to do the exact same for this left container. So here we can do for the left container, we can copy this, place it down. And here I want to display flex direction and set that to column as well. So if we get here, it is nicely aligned below each other. So I'm just going to add flex to 1. And then for the image, we can make the image display all the way as well. So we can say image underscore underscore, or actually left underscore underscore image. And give this a flex of 1 as well. So it just takes up the entire screen. We want left underscore underscore info to display flex of 1 as well. Then we want the product right side, and we want this to display flex of 1, so it takes up the entire space, and then just give it a padding of 1 rem. If I save this, it looks a little bit better. We want this box to display the entire width now, so we can get it by right info and setting the width equal to 100% and giving it a margin of 0. We save it, it looks like this. So this looks much better. It even looks nice on mobile screens. So this is how we adjust the product screen. Very nice. This is starting to get there. Okay, so the next screen I want to tackle is the cart screen, how the cart screen is going to look. So let's get doing that. Okay, so the cart screen is also going to be really quick. I'm going to do that quickly. We can close all of this up. Close this up. The app screen can still be open. It doesn't really matter. Close it up. Open the cart screen and the cart screen.css, and here we're going to start building. So the cart screen, we're going to add inside of its container. We're going to have, once again, a left side and a right side. So you can say class name is equal to cart screen underscore underscore left, and then we have a h2 of that says shopping cart. Sorry if you can hear the dog, it's our neighbor's dog. So we're going to copy this down, we can remove the h2, but we have the right side over here now. Okay, so in the left side we're going to render each one of the cart items. So this is going to render a cart item just like this, and this cart item will have the data of that specific item. So this will be its own component, so let's create that component. In the components folder we can say cart item.js and give it a style folder of cart, not a folder, cart file, cart item.css. And in here we can run the rafce command, we can import cart CSS, cart item CSS over here, and we can give this a style name of class name cart item, just like that. And in here we can render cart item for now, and then import it in here. You can say import, just name it components, and here you can say import cart item from the components folder, the cart item file, and just like this. So if we to save and go back, we can see cart item is being logged to the screen. Excuse me. Okay, so the next thing on this screen, we're going to do the right side. The right side is going to have a div of cart info, so class name, and set this equal to cart screen underscore underscore info. So this will contain all of the info about whatever is in your cart. So here we'll have a p tag which has the subtotal, and the subtotal will have some count, so let's say 0 for now and say items afterwards. And then we'll have a p tag once again of the price, so we can say dollar and then 49.99. Okay, so that's that part of the div, and then the last div is just a button, so we can add here and add a button in here, and this button would say proceed to checkout, just like that. We're to go view this now. We can see everything on the screen. So let's get to style these things. Okay, so the cart item we haven't done yet. So let's quickly do the cart item. This would just make the styling more visual for the cart screen. So the cart item will look as follow. Okay, so in our cart item container, we'll have a div that contains the cart item image. So you can say class name is equal to cart item underscore underscore image, and in here we'll have the image tag that, once again, I'm just going to copy that from the product, get this image right over here, copy it, paste it in here, product name. Okay, so that is the image container, and the next one is going to be a link which takes us to that individual product. So let's import link from React Router DOM, and here we can place a link tag, a link component, excuse me, and in this link we'll have the product name. So this will link to backticks. We'll go to /product, and then we'll have that product ID. So once again, I'm just going to pass in this for now. We'll give this link a class name of cart item underscore underscore name, and in here we'll just have a p tag that contains the name, so it's just going to be product1 for now. And then the next thing, just below this link, we'll have a p tag again, and this will have a class name of cart item underscore underscore price, and this will just contain the price of the item, so you can say $4.99.99. And then the next thing we need is the select. So we can add the select again here. Oops. So we have that. Clear it out. We can give it a value. Well, we can't set the value now. And in here we'll have the options. So this will obviously be rendered dynamically once again. So I'm just gonna add 4. Just like that. Okay, so almost done. All we need is the button for deleting or removing the item from the cart. So we can give this a class name that is equal to cart item underscore underscore delete button. And we give it on click later, and in here we'll have an icon of a class name of FAS FA-trash. So it just will show a little trash icon. Okay, and we can give this a class name of cart item underscore underscore select. And if we just save this and go back, we can see once again the image is huge, but we have the different parts of the cart item. So let's quickly style the cart item and make it look nice. So here I'm going to target the cart item container, and I'm going to give it a width of 100%. So it takes up 100% of its container. Padding of 1 rem. I'm going to give it a margin bottom of 8 pixels. I'm going to give it a display of grid. So each piece inside of the container will have its own grid column. So you can say grid template columns, and here we can say 1 FR for the image, then we have 4 FR for the name, then we have 1 FR for the select, and then 1 FR for the it's for the price, then the select, and then the delete button. So we'll give this a gap of 8 pixels. We'll give it a background color of white. We'll give it a border radius of slight border radius of 2 pixels. We'll give it a place items in the center of the grid. And then we'll give it, yeah, that's that. So if we save that and go back, we can see it still looks a little bit weird because this image is still huge. Let's continue. We'll style the cart item underscore underscore name. We give it a text decoration of none because it is a link tag. We give it a color of the matte black we used all around. Then we can style the cart item underscore underscore name and give it a hover effect, and give it a color of that pinkish thing we used with the nav bar as well. Just like that. Then we want to style the cart item underscore underscore select. Just want to check that I named this correctly. Yes, I did. Okay, so the select, and then we can give it a style of padding 10 pixels and 17 pixels. Then we can style the button, so cart item underscore underscore delete button TN. I believe that's what I called it. Yes. And then here we can style it, give it a padding of 10 pixels, 17 pixels. Give it a color of red, which would just make the logo red inside. We give it a background of that off-white. We give it a border and set the border equal to 1 pixel, solid, and then that matte black. Give it a cursor of pointer, and here we want to transition all, and for 3 seconds we want to transition ease out. And the reason we're going to transition is because we're going to make the button appear a little bit bigger when you hover over it. So here we can say cart item underscore underscore delete button, and we want to put a hover state on it, as well as a focus state and an active state. Okay, and if we remove the last comma, and here we can change the background and set that equal to the matte black, and then we can say transform, and here we can upscale the button to 1.2 of its original size. So if we were to save this and go back, you can see this is still huge, but if I show you the button, it has this kind of look. So the next thing we want to do is do a few media queries for this item as well. So we're going to say media, and then give it a max width of 700 pixels. So at 700 pixels, we want to change the cart item underscore name and set the size, so the font size equal to 1.8 rem. We want to select the cart item underscore select, as well as the cart item button. So delete btn, and we want to resize them. We want to give them a padding of 8 pixels and 13 pixels. And then the last thing in this media query is the cart item underscore price. We want to set the price to a little bit smaller font size, so we can give it a 0.8 rem. Just like that. Let's make this media max width and set this equal to 500 pixels. And here we want to set the same things as here above, so we can just copy all of this, copy and paste it down here. I want to change this to 0.6 and make this 5 and 8 pixels, and then the last one 0.6 as well. So we can once again actually group those two, but it's okay now. If we save this and go back, we should be able to see the media queries take action. You can see the sizes changes over there. So let's get to styling this product that it just looks better. Okay, so we're done with the cart item. So in the cart screen, we're gonna style the cart screen now. So in the cart screen, we're going to select the cart screen, and once again give it a max width. We firstly display it as flex, so this should throw everything in the correct way, just like that. And here we can give it a max width of 1300 pixels. We give it a margin top of 2 rem and auto on the sides, so it's just centered like that. And then we can get the cart screen H2 that says shopping cart and give it a margin bottom of 1 rem. Then we can get the cart item cart screen underscore left and set the flex equals to 0.7% of the screen. We give it a margin right of a 1 rem. We give it a background of transparent, and then we can give it a padding of 1 rem. And then the cart screen right side underscore right, we can give this a flex of the remaining 0.3%, the 30%, and then give it a background of white, give it a box shadow of the same box shadow we've been using all along, 0, 1 pixels, 4 pixels, and RGBA, and here's 0, 0, 0, and then 0.4 opacity, and give it a height of fit content. Like that. If I were to save this and go back, we can see the improvements being made already. And the next thing we need to do is style the right divs. So we're going to give them that that box looking effect as well. So we can say cart screen underscore right, and we're going to select the divs, and we're going to give them a border bottom of 1 pixel solid and a RGBA of 0, 0, 0, 0.2, and give it a padding of 1 rem. Then we want to first get the last child, so we can say cart screen underscore underscore right, and we want to select the divs, and the last child we want to set the border equal to none. So if we check this out, we can see it has this box looking effect once again. Next thing we want to style is the cart screen underscore underscore. All of the info p tags, we want to set the padding equals to 8 pixels. So if we switch and view it now, we can see all of these has 8 pixels, this one has 8 pixels. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is cart screen and underscore underscore right. The image, the display of this grid is not looking correct. I'm not sure why, so let me go into the cart item CSS. So this should be display grid. Oh, this should be columns. Display template columns. Yeah, okay, I wanted to say, so just change that to grid template columns, not grid auto columns. So now it looks, it actually looks like it's supposed to look now. Wow, okay, sorry about that. Okay, so we fixed that. The next thing we want to style here is, let's see, we want to style this button. So let's grab that button. So it's inside a div, and the button, we want to give it a padding of 10 pixels, 17 pixels. We're going to give it a width of 100%. We're going to give it a background color of that matte black. Give it a color inside of the off-white. We're going to give it a border of 1 pixel solid, and then that black color, and then cursor pointer. We save this and go back. We can see it looks nice now. Have this hover effect. We want to add a hover effect to this button, so we can copy that and place a hover effect on it, and we can just change the opacity to 0.9 like this. So it has this nice looking, just shows you, indicating that you're hovering over it. Now we want to add the media queries to this screen. As you can see, it's not really responsive. We saw it changing here. We can see the products details and stuff changing of size, so that's nice. This is still not selecting correctly. Cart item select, I named that incorrectly. So inside of the cart item here, it should be cart item, just like this. Now it displays correctly. Okay, so this looks fine. The next thing we want to do is make this mobile for the cart screen. So we can say add media, and we can say max width is 1320 pixels. We can select the cart screen and make the max width 900 pixels. So this is the first media query. So if I were to go here, you can see the max screen size changing. Okay, the next one is, we can copy this again, paste it down here, is when we get to 960. So when we get to mobile view, we want to change the max screen size to 800. So if we save this and we get to mobile view about here, then the screen size changed again, the max screen size. And then the last media query is when we're inside of this mobile view, we want to change the screen, cart screen, and set the flex direction equals to column. So if I do that, I have to remove this. We can see when we get here, it's actually supposed to put it in column. Why is it not putting it in the column? Okay, so I just had to refresh this because I made an error, so the server was a little bit wonky. Okay, so there it displayed flex like that. And then the last thing we want to do is add the cart item underscore underscore, so that's actually not cart item, it's cart screen. Sorry, this has been a long video. I hope you're still with me. I hope you're taking breaks. And then margin 1 rem. So if I were to view this now, we can see that they are being mobile responsive. So this thing over here, we actually want to remove the margin to the left. So if we get to mobile view here, I want to remove the margin of the cart screen left. So cart screen underscore underscore left. I want to remove all margin. So now it's equal. Nice. Just like that. I think this is pretty nice. So if we add more items to the cart, we can see how this looks by adding it like this. We have more items to the cart, becomes smaller, and now it's completely mobile. Boom. So if I switch to shop, we have this. If we switch to cart, we have this. So this is really nice. We're basically done now. Now we just have to implement Redux. So this is where the exciting parts come, where we work with state in React. This should be really straightforward. We already installed all of the dependencies. We just have to set up the store and then we're good from there. So let's do that next. Okay, so let's go and start setting up our Redux. So I'm going to close all of these up just to make it nice and neat. Close the backend. And inside of my source folder, I'm going to create a new folder and call it Redux. Everything related to Redux we're going to place in here. And in here I'm going to create a store file, store.js, just like this. And in here I'm going to create the actions folder, reducers folder, and then a constants folder. Okay, so in the store, we're going to start with the store. Here I'm going to import create store from Redux. Okay, what I'm going to import from Redux as well is the combine reducers and then the apply middleware. Okay, the next thing I'm going to import is Redux thunk. So I'm going to import it as thunk from Redux thunk. Then I'm going to import from the DevTools, so from Redux DevTools extension, I'm going to import compose with DevTools. So now that we've done importing all of our necessary imports, let's create our reducer. So I'm going to say const reducer is equal to combine reducers. And inside of combine reducers, I pass an object, and in here we will have all our different reducers. So we don't have any reducers now, so I'm just going to leave that out. Then I'm going to create a const middleware, which is going to be an array that has all of our middleware in it. So we only have one middleware, so we're going to add thunk in there. This is our middleware. It helps us to make asynchronous requests in our actions, which you can't do otherwise with Redux. So other alternative is, I think, Redux Saga, but I know Redux thunk. And let's create our store. So you can say const store is equal to create store. And this create store takes in a reducer, the one we created up there. It takes in some initial state, or the next thing is an enhancer, and we're gonna compose with DevTools as our enhancer, and then apply middleware inside of that, and then we're just going to spread the middleware. So whatever is in this array, we're going to add it there. So we can basically just add thunk right in here like that, but I just like doing it in this way because you can add more easily by just adding it there. And then when we're done with that, we just want to export default store. Okay, so now we're done with creating our store setup. So let's connect our application to the store. So in our index.js, here we want to bring in our React Redux package. So we're going to say import something from React Redux, and in here we're going to import something called the provider. So this will provide our entire application with this state, or with the state in our Redux store. So here we're going to wrap our application with the provider component, just like this. And then this provider component takes in a store prop. And here we pass in magically the store we just created. So we're going to import store from, and in the Redux folder we grab this store, and then we just pass in store as the prop. We can save this. Now our application has access to this store. So if I were to go to my browser tools now and view under the Redux tab, so you can add this extension to your browser by just saying Redux Chrome tool, and this first one, Redux dev tool, it already says add to mine, so I can remove it, but it would say add to Chrome from here, and then you have access to seeing Redux over here. So no store was found for this application. If you refresh, bam, the store was added. And the reason for that is we added this compose of dev tools as an enhancer. So it gives us access to all of the state, the actions, what happened. You can see the actions being fired off here. What is the differences in state? You can see like charts of how your state looks and so forth. It's really amazing. Okay, so let's continue. Now that we're done with that, let's start by creating our constants. I like doing it in this order. That is the order that I learned how to do this. And in our constants, we're going to have two files, the cart constants and the product constants. So we can say cart constants .js, and in here we're going to export const. We're going to export a few constants. We're going to export a constant with the name add to cart, and we're going to set that equal to the same value but as a string. So this just helps with not making spelling mistakes. You don't have to do the constants, but it's just best practice to do it this way. Next one is remove from cart. We're going to copy this and paste it right in here. The last one is reset cart. So we can say cart reset. Copy this and then add it to your application, add it to your variable name. We can save. And we're done with the cart's constants. The next constants we can create is the products constants, or just product constants .js. And in here we have the following constants. We'll have export const get products underscore request. So we'll see where we use this. When we initially make a request to our API, we send this so that we add the loading as true, and then we want to just change this to success, so when we finally get our products. And then the last one, we want to change this to if something happened and getting the products failed. Then we can actually just copy this and paste it down here. And this is going to be, instead of products, we can rename all of these to product, individual, singular, and then we can add here details. So if we go and fetch the individual product and view it on the product screen, we call this actions, or this constants. And then the last one here is just product details reset. If we save that, that's all of the constants for the products. So now we're done with all of our constants. Now we can go into our reducers. So the first reducer we're going to work on is our cart reducer. So I can create a file here and call it cart reducers.js. And in here we're basically going to import everything as action types from our constants file. So we can say from the constants folder, the cart constants. So now we have access under the action types. If I were to show you this, I can say action types dot, and then it shows me all of the constants in the cart constants. And here I just want to export my reducer, so I can say export const, and this is cart reducer. And this cart reducer takes in two things. It takes in a state, which we can set equal to just a document, and this document or object has a field cart items, and set this cart items to just an array. And it takes in an action. So this is our initial state or our default state we set. And now we want to check the actions that are dispatched. So we want to check the action type. So if the action type is of type, so we can say action types is of type add to cart, we want to do the following. Let's just add the default case here as well, so it just stops with that line. So we can just say if there's nothing, if one of the action types that came through is not one of these we mentioned, just return the state. Okay, else what we want to do here is we want to say const item is equal to the action.payload. So we'll get in our action.payload, we'll get the item we would like to add. And then we want to check if this item already exists in the cart. So you can say item is equal to state dot cart items, and here we want to find, so we can run the array method find, and then we want to check if this one we are mapping through, so the x dot product is equal to the item dot product. So the product will contain the ID of this product in the cart, so the product will just reference the item by its ID. So if we find that ID in our current cart items array, then we know it already exists and it will return the item in there. So here we can do an if check and say if exists item. So if it actually exists, we want to do the following to our cart state. We want to spread the state of our cart. Then we want to go to the cart items and we want to set it to new cart items dot map. So we want to set it to a new array, and we're going through that old array and we map through each item in the array, and we check where the current item it's mapping through dot product is equal to the existing item dot product. And then we want, if that is true, we want to set that equal to the new item we found in the action.payload. So this item here, we want to set that equal to the new item. Else we just want to set it equal to the current item it is mapping through. So that is what we want to do in the if part. Else, if the item was not found, it's the first time it is added to the cart, so we just want to add it to the cart. So here we just say return, and we once again spread the state. And now we can go to the cart items array and just push it in here. So we can spread the cart items and then just add that new item in the array. Just like that. Okay. The next action we had is for in case we have an action type of remove from cart. So we want to remove this item from the cart. So we can say just return, spread the state, and then we want to say cart items, and we want to take the state of the cart items and we want to map or filter through it. So we want to filter through each individual item. So we can say here if the item dot product, so the ID, is not equal to the action dot payload. So in the payload for remove from cart, we will just send the ID of that item. So we want to add everything to the new array, so the cart items array, where it is not equal, so where the product is not, so we kind of leave it out of the new array. So that is how we would do that. And then, yeah, I think that is it. So we can save this. And now we can go to our actions. So in our actions folder, we can create a cart actions.js. And in here is where we're going to make our HTTP request to our backend to get the product's details and add it to the cart. So in here we import once again everything as action types from our constants folder and then the cart actions. And here I want to import Axios. So this is going to help us make our Ajax requests. So here we have a function called add to cart. And this function takes in the ID, so the product ID, and then the quantity of that product. And then we return the asynchronous function, which has access to the dispatch function. So this is why we use Redux Stunk to be able to do this. And once we are done doing that, we can now say const and then destructure the data out of our Axios request. So we can say axios.get, and we want to make a API request to our backend. So we can say /API/products and then that specific ID. So if you remember from our backend, which was a while ago, we had the products controller, and then we can go to the route. Here we have the product/ID. So we are going to API products/ID. Products/ID. So we're hitting this round and getting that that items data back. So we can just add the ID in here. And once that is done, we want to dispatch a type of action types.add to cart. And what we are expecting in the reducer, if you remember correctly, in the reducer we are expecting the item. So we can build up that item now. So we can say payload is equal to a document or a object, and this object will have the product field, which is equal to the data that is returned ._ID. We'll have the name field, which is equal to the data or just data name. Then we have the image URL. So this comes from the database now. So we can say data.image URL. We have the price. So we can say data.price. Then we have the count in stock. And here we can set data to count in stock, just like this. And then the last thing we want to pass in is the quantity that we get from the function call up here. Once we are done with the dispatch, we want to save this cart to local storage. So we can say local storage.set item, and we give it a name of cart. And here we want to set the item to the local storage. So we have to say JSON.stringify, and we want to get the data that we dispatched here. So in order to do that, in this second function here, we can extract the getState function. This is part of Redux Thunk. So here we can now say the following. We can say getState, and this will get us the cart state, which we actually haven't added to our reducer yet, now that I think about it, but we'll do that in just a second. So under the cart, let me quickly add it to our store. In here we have to pass it to combine reducers. So we first have to import reducers. So we can say import from the Redux. It's actually in the same file, so I can just say reducers, and then we have cart reducer. And in cart reducer, if you remember, we had add, what was it called? We called it cart reducer, just cart reducer. So you can say, we can import the cart reducer, and in here by combine reducers we give it a name of cart, and then here we add the cart reducer to the value of cart. So now this cart value should be inside of our store. So if I were to refresh here and we go to state, we can see the cart value is in here now. So now we want to get access to the cart state and the cart items in our action here. So we get state, we go to the cart reducer, and then we get the cart items, and then we add that to our local storage. So this would be the end of this add to cart function. The remove from cart function, we can once again just export const remove from cart, and here we don't have to do asynchronous action, so we just want to dispatch from this action. So we can say dispatch, and then we want to get the state as well, because when we remove an item from the cart we want to update the local storage. And here we can directly call dispatch of a type, so we can say type of action types dot remove from cart, and here we just want to send a payload with the ID that we want to remove, and this ID will be sent from the remove from cart function. And then we just want to update our local storage dot set item. We want to get the same one as we named it up here, the cart, and we want to do exactly the same. We want to say json.stringify, and in here we want to get state, and we want to get the cart state and the cart items, just like that, and it would update it, because once this dispatch is complete, this cart items will no longer have that item we removed. So if we were to save this, now we're done with our cart actions. So we will be able to add items to our cart. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is do the products reducers and actions and so forth, and then we can add it to our application. So I'm just going to keep the store open so I remember to add the products. So I already have the products constants. So let's go to the product reducer. Let's go to the reducer folder and say in the reducers we create product reducers.js, and in here we're going to handle all of the state that we receive from our backend. So the first one we're going to have two reducers. We're going to have the get product reducer and the get product detail reducer. So we import once again as action types from the constants and the product constants this time. So we're going to export our first reducer. We're going to give it a function name of get products reducer, and it will have a state and then some action. This state will look as follows. We'll have a state and we'll set this equal to an object, and this object will contain the products, which is an array, and then the action that is received. So here we can make a switch statement where we check the action.type, and in case the action.type is of action types.get, so we first want to do the request, and when we do the request we want to set loading to true. So here we can return, and what we do is set a loading value and set this equal to true, and this will allow our application to wait until this value is equal to false before we display certain things, otherwise it would crash. So we set loading to true, and then we set the product still equal to nothing. So if we have a case where we have action types dot get products success, now we know we got the products, so we want to set loading to false, and then we want to add to the products array here, we want to add our action.payload. So from our backend we will receive an array, and then we just populate this products with the array we got from the backend. And here we can say action types dot, if there was a fail, so get products fail. So if something were to fail, basically all we want to do here is set an error variable. So we set loading equals to false, but we want to set some error equals to the action.payload. We'll send the error message in this payload, and then we just need a default case so that it would stop complaining, just like this. So this is the first reducer, the get products reducer. So this would get all of the products when we get to our home page. It would fetch all of the products and list them. The next one is if we click on view a product, so we get individual product details and set this equal to some state, and this state will just have a products document, just like this, and it would be equal to just the empty document, and then we have the action. And in here we're going to have a switch statement once again of action.types, or just type. And if we have a case where the action types is equal to get product details request, we want to do the same as that we did above. We want to set loading equals to true. And then we don't have to add anything to the product, so we can kind of leave that just like that. We can say case action types dot get product details success. Here we want to return and set loading equals to false, and we want to add to the product, we want to get our action.payload and add that to our product, whatever is that we get from the backend. So when we make a request to the backend, in our payload we'll get that individual product and then just add it to that object. The next thing is case of action type dot get product fail. So if there was a fail, we'll return loading as false, and we'll set the error that we get from the action.payload. The last thing is when we get action reset, so action types dot get underscore product underscore details reset, just like this. And all we want to do is return empty product. So you can just say product and set this equal to an empty document. The last thing is the default state. So we can just return this state. So here we are done with our reducers. So let's add our reducers to the store. So I'm going to bring this down. We're going to have get products. So let's just reference the right one. So it's product reducers. And here I want to get product detail and get products. Did I not name this reducer? Yeah, it should be reducer. Save this. Get products details reducer, and then get products reducer. And in our combined reducers, we add two new pieces of state. We get products, and we set that equal to get products reducer. And then the next one is get product details, and we want to set that equal to get product details reducer. So if we were to save this now and go back to my application and refresh, we can now see that the three pieces of state. We have the get products, which has an array of all the products. Then we have the get products details, which contains a specific product. So now we are done with adding the reducer. Let's create the actions for the products. So in the actions folder, we create a product actions.js file, and in here we're just going to dispatch all of our actions to get from the database. So we can import everything as action types from the constants and the product constants, and here we want to import Axios from Axios. And once this is done, we have the two different actions. We're actually going to have three, but we can say export const get products. So when we get to the home page, we'll call this function. This function has access to the dispatch, and here we can do the following. We can make our try catch HTTP request. So in here we dispatch a type of action types, and here we say get products request. So we set the loading to true, and then we make our request to our API. So we can destructure the data, and we can say await axios.get, and here I want to get the following things. I want to go to the route of /API/products, and this should just return all of the products in the data. Then we can dispatch the type of action types dot get products success, and then the payload should contain all of the data, so we can just add data in over there. Okay, so if there is an error, we want to dispatch the following. We want to dispatch a type of action, the failed one, so we can say get products failed, so it failed, and here we want to set the payload equal to the following. We want to check if this error has a response, then we want to check, so if this error has a response and this response has a data.message field, then we want to send back the data.message field, so we want to send this back. Else we just want to send back the error.message, like this. Okay, so now we can copy this. This is the end of the get products, and we can paste it down here, and we can say get product details, and we'll need a product ID to get the details from. And here we can dispatch action get product underscore details request. Then we want to make a request to a specific endpoint, so this is going to be backticks. And in here we want to find the product by its ID. So in the back end we had that product by ID. If you go to the routes, we have this, we want to make a request to this route again. Okay, so once we've done that, we get the product in the data. We want to dispatch underscore details success, and then pass it through, else the error remains the same. So this is much faster. Okay, so we can save this, and then the last thing we want to do is we want to remove product. So we can say export const remove product details. So this is if we switch back to the screen, we want to first remove all of the state. So in here we can once again get the dispatch, but this is not an asynchronous function, so we don't have to say async. And here we just want to dispatch. We want to dispatch a type of action types dot get product details reset, this one, and save. So this is all of our actions done. So if this was a little bit too quick for you, just rewind and watch it over again. This should all of these actions should make sense when we add it to our application now. So the first thing we're going to do is fetch our products. So I'm going to exit out of this, close our backend, and inside of our home screen, I'm going to initially use a use effect to find our products. So let's get started with that. Instead of rendering the products like this, I'm going to get it from my store. So I'm going to import use effect and from React, and here I'm going to add my use effect. So before I add my use effect, I want to get 2 hooks from the React router or React Redux. I want to get 2 hooks. So these hooks are use selector and use dispatch. So this is a much easier way of working than that map state to props and map dispatch to props. You import it really easy in functional based components. So here I can say const, I create a dispatch variable and I set this equal to use dispatch. The next thing I want to do is get the products data. So I want to, in my reducer, I want to get this products data. So I can say get products is equal to use selector, and this use selector takes a function that returns state, and I want to return the state dot products or get products. And from the get products, I want to destructure. So I want to take this and I want to destructure and get the products array. So there would be more things added here. We get the products array, we get loading, and then we get error. So before rendering anything or mapping to anything, you want to check for loading or error so that you don't get errors. Okay, so in our use effect, when this page loads, every time this page loads, I want to make a dispatch to list the products. So we have to import that action. So we can go down here and say actions, and I want to import something from our Redux file and our actions and then our product actions. So we want to get products. So get products, and I'm going to rename this as list products, so that we don't have a clash between these two names. So list products I want to call, I'm going to say dispatch, and here I'm going to say list products and just run it as a function. So now we should be able to list the items. So if I just add dispatch as a dependency to the use effect, and I save this and I go back to my page and I reload, we can see the products was populated. What does it say here? Failed status code. Let's check. Oh, we have the course error. Okay, so in order to do this correctly, for our React app to have access to our backend or make a request to our backend, we have to add a proxy. So inside of our front end, we go to its package.json, and here we can add a proxy. So this proxy should be equal to the following. It should be equal to http 127.0.0.1 and then port 5000. So this is just redirecting it to our localhost port 5000. So if I were to do that, save and refresh, this should work now. Redux request failed. Okay, so let's check this out. We're making a request in our Redux actions, our products actions. So here we get products, we dispatch action loading, and then we make a request to API products. It's a get request to API products. So in our backend, oh, you know what? We have to actually restart the server to do this. So I'm gonna restart the server, run dev again. This should work when restarting the server because we made a change to the package.json. So let me check if this works. Let's cross our fingers. It looks like it worked. We don't have an error. So in our Redux, we can get to products, and the products is now an array of our 6 items we have in our database. So this is awesome. Now we just have to render them in our home screen by passing it to the products. So over here, we want to do the following checks. Before we do anything with this products, we want to check if loading is done. So we want to say if loading, then we want to display a loader. So I'm just going to add a h2 that says loading. You can add your own loader here. So if it's loading, show the loader. Else, if there is an error, so the one like we got now, if there's an error, I want you to display a h2 that says, that just logs that error. So this loading is coming from our state over here, and this error is coming from the state over here. So if none of these two are true, so if there's not loading and there's no errors, then I want you to map through my products. So the products that we got from the state.map, and then for each product, I want to return a product component and render it. So if I were to do this and save and go back, you can see it's loading, and then it shows us all the product, and it rendered the exact same amount of products that we have in our database. So now we just have to pass in the correct values to render on the screen. So let's do that, but in order to do that, we're going to have to open our components, product component, and in here we're going to have to extract all of these things. So we're going to need image URL, we're going to need a name, we're going to need a price, a description, and a product ID. Is that all? See, here we pass in the product ID, here we have the price, here we have the description, name, and then the image. Yes, that looks like everything. And instead of rendering the hard-coded values here, we can pass in the image URL, and for the alt we'll just put in the actual product name, so you can say name, and here where it has the product name we can just add product or just name to destructure it from there, and in the description we can just add description. But in the physical product thing I don't want the entire description to show, so I'm just going to add a substring of the first 100 characters, and then I'm just going to add a ... at the end, like that. Okay, so the price is over here, so we can add the price down there, and then over here I just want to add the product ID. So instead of yeah, this should work, and in our products, when we render it, we need to pass that product. So we can say product ID is equal to the product we are rendering through. Dot, if we go back to our state, we can see it's under the underscore ID field. So we can say underscore ID. This actually needs a key as well, so we have to pass it that same thing. Pass it the key. Let's just make this neater to read by doing it like this. Then we need the name, which is equal to the product.name. Then we need a price, which is equal to the product.price. Have a description, which is equal to product.description, and then the image URL, which is equal to the product.image URL. If we save this and go back, it should load each individual item separately. So loading is still set to true, and boom, we have each individual item loading separately. So if I were to click on this, it's still going to give me the hard-coded product view, but we'll do the exact same thing that we did for the products. So this is nice, we're getting there. So okay, so this, I think this is done. Yes, this is done. So the products is done as well. So the next thing we need to do is go to our actual product screen, just the product screen, and here we want to render our values dynamically as well. So I'm going to go into my screens, product screen, and here once again, instead of this hard-coded values, we're going to get a few things from our state. So we're going to import use state, use effect from React. Then we're going to import the use dispatch, the use selector from React Redux. Then we need to import our actions. So I'm going to import the action of get product details, like this, from the Redux folder and the actions and the product actions. And we want to get another action of add to cart, because if we look at this view, if we click on an item, we can say add to cart. So we want to be able to add to cart from this page. So let's actually stay on this page. And we can see it loaded the actual ID in the data in the URL. So add to cart from Redux / actions / cart actions this time. Okay, and we're gonna get a few things as props. We're gonna get match and history. So in here, we're gonna have a const of state called quantity and set quantity. So we'll be able to adjust this field over here. This is what the quantity state is for. And we're gonna say use state and set this equal initially to 1. Then we want to create our dispatch variable. So once again, just say use dispatch. And then we want to extract our state. So we can say product details. Product details is equal to the use selector hook that takes state and returns whatever we want from the state. So we can say we want to return the state dot get product details, because if you remember, we have in our state this get product details which contains the specific product. Okay, and from this product get products detail, we want to get the loading, the error, and the actual product. And we're going to set this equal to the product details. So in our use effect, we want to check for the following things and do the following things. We want to check if the product exists. So we're looking at this. If it exists, so if it is in state, and the match.params.id, so whatever is in here, that is what match.params gives us. It gives us this. And then we say .id, because in app we set an ID field here. If that is not equal to the product that is in state ._id, then we want to dispatch an action. So we want to dispatch get product details, and we want to pass it, if you remember, it takes in an ID, we want to pass it whatever is in our params. So we can say match params.id, and here we just have to add a few dependencies. It's the dispatch dependency, it's the product dependency, and it's the match dependency. If we do that and save, now it should load the get product. There we got our actual product that was loaded. So if we click on the iPhone, we get the iPhone data, and you can see the actions being firing off here. So now all we have to do is just display the right information in our screen, on our screen. So instead of here, so first let's make sure that it's not loading. Okay, so we're gonna go all the way above here, and we're gonna say if loading is true, we want to display a h2 that says loading. Else, if there is an error, we want to display this h2 that just logs the error to the screen for us. And if none of these two are true, we want to do the following. We want to render a fragment, and this fragment contains everything down below here. So you can copy this and paste it in here and save. So now if we click on an item, we'll see loading for a brief second. we'll view, it says loading, and then it goes. Now we just have to render the correct information. So in here, instead of source, we can now load the product.image URL. And for the name, we can just load product.name. So if we just save this already, it should change to the correct view. So here we can just add the product name as well, product.name, and this is coming from our state now. So here we can say product.price, and in description we can just say product.description. And then the last thing is on the left hand side, the products page. So if we were to save this and go back, we can see it's re-rendering. And this price is based upon how many I select. So if I were to select like 4, this price would update to the amount. Let me just make sure about that. I think I'm talking incorrectly. Okay, so that's actually not the case. So we'll leave it like that. This just gives you a brief summary of this product. Is it in stock? What's the price? And so forth. So this would actually be the same. You can add here product.price. And in the status, we can do the following. We can check if the product.count in stock is greater than 0, then I want to render in stock. Oh, that was not supposed to happen. Else, I want to render out of stock, like this. So it would check if we go to our product detail and the individual product, we can see that we got the count in stock from the database as well. So this would be in stock. And then the next thing is rendering the select correctly. So this is the part where we use a little bit of a hack. So we can say here value is equal to the quantity field. We add it and we have an onChange value here. This onChange value will take an E, and then we will set quantity equal to e.target.value. So whatever we choose in this drop down, and rendering the correct amount here, all we have to do is create an array, and we'll use the array constructor and pass in here the product.count in stock. So it will make an array of the exact size that is this product count in stock. And then we'll take the keys of this new array, and then we'll map. And mapping through this, we can check for each key we want to create an option. So we can say option and give this option value in here of X, because if it's in the 0th index, that means there's 1 and then plus 1. So we give it a value of the exact same. We can say X plus 1. And then we need to give it a key because it's mapping, and React wants you to add a key, unique key, so we can just do it like this. So let's just see, we don't need to do these curly braces, we can just pass in these like this and save. If we were to go back now, we can see the correct amount logging. So we have 5, and if we go to the product, we can see we have count in stock 5. So if we were to go to something else, we can see there's 15 PlayStations and there's 15 in stock. So this is coming together really nicely now. All we have to do is, we're able to switch the state. Yes, okay, so that works. So all we need to do is the add to cart functionality now. So in order to add to cart, we need to do the add on click event listener to this button. So we can say on click, and we want to add to cart handler. And this add to cart handler will be a function that we create up here. So we can say const add to cart handler. And this add to cart handler does the following. It dispatches to our reducer. So it dispatches add to cart to our reducer. So we actually have to dispatch add to cart, and this add to cart took in an ID and a quantity. So here we can give it the product dot underscore ID, as well as the quantity field that we got in the state here. And then once that is done, we want to history dot push to the cart. So we just want to go to the cart and view this item in our cart now. So if we want to save this and go back and we add to cart, it takes us to our cart. Now obviously these are still hard coded and we'll do that in just a second, but this is looking really, really nice. Okay, so the next thing in this page, we're actually done here. We're all done with the product screen. So the next thing we need to do is go to our cart screen, and in our cart screen we want to obviously use effect again and load everything that was added to our cart state. So if we check here, we added to cart. So if I were to view the cart state, we can see we have one item in there now. We can see the product name, image URL, price, and quantity. So the add to cart works fine. So now we just have to render it correctly. Okay, so instead of hard coding these items in here like this, I'm just going to remove them for now. And I'm going to import from React the use effect and I'm going to import the use selector and use dispatch once again. And the reason we import the use dispatch is when we go to cart and we want to adjust the cart size or the cart quantity from here, we need to redispatch the cart to change that. So from React Redux, and then what do we want to do here? Well, when we load the okay, so we actually don't need that. Oh, okay. So you can say import link from React Router DOM. Okay, so let's do this. Once again, we create our dispatch and we say use dispatch. We want to get our cart from our state, so we can say use selector and we take the state and return the state.cart. Then from our cart, we want to destructure a few things. We want to get the cart item, cart items. Now we have access in this component to the cart items. So the next thing we need to do is, actually we don't need use effect now that I think about it. Yes, we don't need use effect. Okay, so now that we have the items, we want to loop through the items in our cart. So here we can do the follow check. We can say cart items dot length. If the length is equal to 0, that means there's nothing in our cart. Then we want to render a link. So this div should have your cart is empty. And then we want to render a link that says link, and this goes to back to the shop page. And in here we just want to say go back. So if that is the case, that it is empty, else what we want to do is we want to map through the cart. So if that is not the case, we want to say cart items dot map, and for each item in the cart we want to create that cart item component. So we can say cart item and render it in the state. And in here, obviously, we're going to make this cart item dynamic as well. But I think this should work. So let's save this and go back. We can see we only have one item in our cart. This is the one item in our cart, and it's only rendering one thing. So now we have to make the cart item dynamic. So in our components, cart item, instead of hard coding the things here as well, we can do the following. We can get the item. We're gonna get we just get the item. So in here, instead of rendering the photo like this, we can just say item dot image URL. Instead of product name like this, we can say item.name. And here we were able to click on the product and it would redirect us. We just say item._ID, I believe. Let's just check. In the cart, oh, it's under the product. So it's item.product, like this. And then the item name, item.name. The item price, so you can say item.price. And then we'll do exactly the same here for the select. We'll have a value which is equal to the quantity we're going to send through. I'm just going to check this. So the value, we're setting it equal to the item.quantity that we added. And here is going to have an onChange handler as well. And this onChange handler, we will actually send this through from our cart screen. So I'm just going to console.log here for now, so it doesn't throw an error. Okay, and then I want to render these dynamically once again. So I'm just going to say, create an array of the item dot quantity or count in stock, and then dot keys, and then map. And in here I want to map through each of them and return an option. The option key should be equal to x plus 1. The option value should be equals to x plus 1. And then we can close it up, and in the body of the option we can add x plus 1. If we were to save this and go back, cannot properly image URL of undefined. So let's refresh this, go back, we can view item, add to cart. Okay, so it's having a problem over here. Oh, we haven't actually passed in the item yet, so you can pass the item in like this and set it equal to the item. If we do it now you can see it actually loads. So the next thing we need to do is, whenever we change an item's quantity from the cart item page, so from here, when we want to change the item quantity, we need to dispatch a function to redo the cart. So now you can see if I refresh, we kind of lose the cart data. So this is not correct. We'll get to that in just a second. So in our cart screen, let's create a function here called const quantity change handler. And this quantity change handler will get an ID and a quantity. And what this would do is we would just dispatch our add to cart once again. We actually need to import that action, so we can say actions.import add to cart from Redux actions and then cart actions. So we have access to that. And then we just pass in the ID and then the quantity. But then we pass this reference to this quantity change handler to our cart item. So we can set that equal to that. And we can then go into our cart and destructure it out of our props as well. And whenever there's an onChange, instead of logging this to the screen, we can say quantity, and then just send in the value. So whatever the value is, e.target.value, as well as the ID. So it's actually first the ID and then the quantity. So we can say item.product and then the e.target.value. The e comes from the onChange function over here. So if we were to save this, it should dispatch our cart. So if I change this and set it to 2, quantity is not a function. get it from here, set it up here. Oh, I didn't save this, oh my goodness. Okay, so if I were to change this to 3, it updated to 3. So this is great. So if I go to my cart, I can now see the quantity is changed to 3. The Redux DevTools are really amazing for working with this. Okay, the next thing we need to do is the remove from cart. So if I want to remove this from the cart, so we have to pass through to this item the remove from cart handler as well. So we'll create another function called const remove from cart. Then this remove from cart just takes in an ID, and then it would dispatch the remove from cart that we have to import here. Remove from cart, and it will dispatch this function and just pass in the ID. Now we can reference this function to the cart items component, and inside of our cart item we can destructure that function, and whenever we click on this button, so we can say on click on the delete button, we want to run that function, so we can put it in here and just pass the item dot product. If we save this and go back and we delete, maximum call stack exceeded. Okay, that is not good. So let's see what I did wrong here. So whenever I click on the button, I want to call remove cart and send it the product item. Send it this function. Oh, it has the same name. Okay, so we can't do that. We have to remove, just call it remove handler. And here I'm gonna copy and paste it in here like this, save this, destructure it differently here, give it a different name here and save. So this should work. Sorry about that. So you can't give it the same name, otherwise it's just going to recursively keep on calling itself. So if I go here and I delete, it deletes it from the cart, and we no longer have any items in our cart, and it tells us to go back and add something to our cart. Great, so this is working now. The next thing we need to do is update these this little number here, and then display the subtotal and everything correctly. So let's do the subtotal thing first, because that's almost the same. And for the subtotal, it is over here. I actually want to create a function called get cart count. And this function should run, but there is no such function yet, so we can say const get cart count, and we're going to create basically the same function in our nav bar. And here all I want to do is return the cart items dot reducer, or just reduce, sorry, we're going to use the reduce array method, and here we have a quantity and the item. So we want to say for each item dot quantity, we want to plus that by the quantity we started with, and we start with 0. So if we save this and go back, we can now see the item is logging 30, which is incorrect, and the reason for this is we should just add this to number, convert this to number. So the quantity dot type is saved as a string. You can see it's a string there, so we want to just convert it to a number, and if I do that, save and refresh, we can see we have the correct amount. So if I were to adjust this to 2, that adjusts with it. Okay, so now we want to do the same for the price, but for the price we have to calculate something. So we want to say const get cart sub total, like this. And this function is also going to use the reduce, but just in a different manner. So we can say return cart items dot reduce. We have the price now, and then we still have the item, and for each item we want to multiply this item dot price with the quantity, so the item dot quantity, and then we want to plus this or sum this with the price value we started with, and the starting price value is 0. So if we save this and run this function where we add the subtotal, which is down here, we can actually do this like this. Curly braces, run the function, and then I just want to say to fixed and set that to 2 and save. If we go back, we can now see the actual value being logged. So if I go back to only 1, we can see the correct value. Going 2, it should be 2. Yes. Okay. So that all is working correctly. This is awesome. I hope you guys are excited that this is starting to work, and it's been a long journey, but I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it. You've learned a lot. Okay, yeah, so that's all for the card screen. All we need to do now is add it to the nav bar. So I'm going to go into my component, the nav bar component, and in here I'm going to need access to the state once again. So I'm going to say import, only use selector though, from React Redux. And here I'm going to const card is equal to use selector, and we're going to take the state and send back the cart. And here I want to destructure the cart items from, not from, equals to the cart. So I'm going to create the same function here, get cart count, which is equal, which will return the cart items dot reduce. So we want to take in the quantity and the item. So here we can say the quantity plus the item dot quantity, and it would start at 0. We just want to run this function in this position right over here, like that. And if I were to go back, there's nothing in my cart now, but if I add something to my cart, it updates over there. And if I change this to, let's say 7, it updates over there as well. But you can see this is doing it incorrectly once again, and the reason for this is we have to make this number of the type number. If we save this, it's going to change it, and boom, we've got everything set up correctly. So if we go to our cart, we can see this. If we add something new to our cart, let's quickly do that. Boom, we have 2 items in our cart. We have 14 items in our cart now, and the subtotal is a lot of money. And we have no items in our cart. So this is great. The last thing, we have to add it to this screen here as well, to the side drawer. So you can actually just copy this. I'm going to copy all of this, copy this, and go to our side drawer, and then paste it in down here. Then we just need to import use selector from React Redux, and then just run this function in this badge here. Save. We go back and we go to mobile view. We go back and we add something to our cart. Let's add this to our cart. And when we view, we can see this cart's being updated correctly. Awesome. So what do we have next to do? I think this is about it. I think we're about done. Let's see. I think this is it. I think we're done. Let's see, it has all of the functionality. I'm able to add to cart. Oh, we just want to check if I refresh. We want to make sure it persists in local storage. So all we want to do is we go to our store. You remember in our store I said we can set initial values. So here we want to set some initial values. So you can say const initial underscore state is equal to an object, and here we can say set the cart equal to cart items, and this cart items we want to set equal to something. So we want to check const cart from local storage, and we want to check if we are able to find a cart value in our local storage, then great, then we want to add that to our cart items value over here. So I'm going to say if local storage dot get item. So we want to look for an item, and if I find this cart item, I want to do the following. So I want to check if it exists, and if it exists, I want to take that cart item and say JSON.parse, and I want to pass it in that cart item. else I just want to add an empty array. So now I can just copy this and paste it down here and paste this initial state in between the enhancer and the reducer. And now if I were to save this and go back, we have 0 items in our cart. If I were to go and add something to our cart, let's add this item to our cart. Let's add another item to our cart. Let's just do this for fun because we're excited. We just finished this application, and we were to refresh, it persists in local storage. So I can see we have one error here. So let's just check. We didn't give something in the cart screen. We have to give each individual render a key. So we're just going to give this item.product. So this should be a unique key. So if we do refresh, we can see that is gone. If we delete this and refresh, we can see it still persists the data. Add 3. We have 3 items in our cart. If we were to go do this, refresh, add a new page, open this, we can see we still have the same data. If we remove it, we can refresh, nothing here. We can go back here and refresh, and nothing is here. So this is the end of this application. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It's really a long video, but I think you guys would like this. I got a lot of requests asking me to do something like this, just making a full project type video. And yeah, so I really do hope you like this video. If there's any problems, let me know down below. And please remember to like and subscribe in this video, because this video took a lot of time to make and I'm doing it for you guys. So yes, peace out, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.